What if the symbol of hope was born from tragedy? What if Izuku Midoriya wasn't the cheerful dreamer we knew, but a towering giant with the power to repel anything, even fate itself? Welcome to a world where Izuku carries paw pads on his palms, a Bible in his arms, and a burden no hero should bear. They call him the Tyrant, but his heart bleeds for those he protects. This is the story of sacrifice. This is the story of Bartholomew Kuma reborn.
Welcome, legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The abandoned district of Musutafu burned. Flames licked at skeletal buildings, casting writhing shadows across rubble-strewn streets. The air tasted of smoke and copper, thick enough to choke on. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Too late, as always. Heroes would arrive to find only aftermath, only the scorched evidence of violence already concluded. In the center of this inferno stood a boy. He was impossibly tall for 14, 6 feet and 8 inches of lean muscle and quiet devastation. His green hair was matted with blood not his own, and his school uniform hung in tatters, revealing a body marked by scars that had no business on someone so young. But it was his hands that drew the eye. Both palms bore strange, soft-looking paw pads, pink and almost gentle in appearance, grotesquely at odds with the destruction surrounding him. Izuku Midoriya stood alone among 17 unconscious villains. "If you were to travel," he said softly to the last villain still conscious, a man with metal spikes protruding from his shoulders, "where would you like to go?" The man's eyes widened in terror. He tried to scream. Izuku's paw-padded hand touched his chest. The man vanished. Silence fell, broken only by the crackling of flames. Izuku looked at his hands, at the paw pads that marked him as different, as powerful, as monstrous. They were soft, designed for gentleness. He'd spent years learning to touch things without destroying them, to control the repulsion force that could turn a casual brush into a devastating attack. He thought, as he always did in these moments, of her. Mom. The memory surfaced unbidden. It always did when he used his power in anger. He pushed it down, locked it away in the same place he kept all the pain, all the grief, all the crushing weight of what he'd lost. A Bible rested in his jacket's inner pocket, its pages worn soft from constant reading. He pulled it out now, flipped to a passage he'd marked months ago. "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." Izuku closed the book. "Not life," he whispered to the empty street, "humanity." He repelled himself into the air, launching toward UA High School. Tomorrow, his new life would begin. Tonight, he was still the Tyrant of Musutafu. The boy whose kindness was legendary and whose power was absolute. The boy who'd lost everything to save nothing. The underground medical facility was pristine white, sterile in that way that made Izuku's skin crawl. Dr. Ujiko peered at him through thick glasses, instruments humming as they scanned the paw pads on Izuku's palms. This was 3 years ago. Izuku was 11, and he'd just killed his first person. "Fascinating," Ujiko murmured. "The Nikyu Nikyu quirk. Extraordinarily rare, the ability to repel anything, matter, energy, even abstract concepts. Your mother had a telekinesis quirk, correct? And your father?" "Unknown," Izuku said flatly. He didn't mention that his father had disappeared before he was born, that he'd grown up with only his mother's love to sustain him, that she'd told him stories every night about heroes who saved people with smiles. She'd smiled when she died. Even as life bled out onto the street, even as Izuku had screamed and pressed his small hands against the wound, she'd smiled at him. "It's okay, Izuku, you'll be okay. You're going to be such a wonderful hero." He hadn't been able to save her. His quirk had manifested the next day. The mutation is significant, Ujiko continued, oblivious to Izuku's internal torment. These paw pads aren't just cosmetic, they're the focal point of your power. The repulsion force generates from here, controlled by your will. In theory, you could repel anything: air, light, time itself. Can I repel death? Izuku asked. Ujiko looked up. For a moment, something that might have been sympathy flickered across his face. No, child. Not even your power can do that. Izuku nodded. He'd already known the answer. He'd held his mother's body, had felt the exact moment her warmth left, had understood with terrible clarity that some things couldn't be pushed away. The villain who killed her, Ujiko said carefully. The police report says he was found 3 kilometers away, every bone in his body broken. Witnesses claim a young boy with paw-marked hands sent him flying with a single touch. Izuku said nothing. You repelled him at near light speed. The force should have liquefied him. The fact that he survived is remarkable. The fact that you held back is noble. I didn't hold back. Izuku's voice was quiet, measured. I aimed him at a building I knew would collapse and cushion the impact. I wanted him to live, to face justice, to understand what he'd done. Why? Because my mother would have wanted that. Ujiko removed his glasses, cleaned them slowly. You're 11 years old. You've just manifested a quirk that could level cities. You've used it to avenge your mother while ensuring her killer survived to face trial. Most children in your position would have become villains. Why haven't you? Izuku pulled out the Bible his mother had given him for his 10th birthday. It was the only thing of hers he had left. Because someone has to protect people. Someone has to bear the burden. Even if it costs you everything? Especially then. That was the moment the world started calling him the Tyrant. Izuku woke at 4:47 a.m., exactly 3 minutes before his alarm. He'd trained himself to wake early, to maximize every moment of preparation. Sleep was a luxury, rest was weakness, and he'd long ago accepted that comfort was something he couldn't afford. His apartment was sparse. A bed, a desk, a single bookshelf crammed with notebooks filled with hero analysis and philosophical treatises. On the wall hung a photograph, the only personal item he displayed. His mother, Izuku Midoriya, smiling at the camera with him wrapped in her arms. He'd been 4. The world had been simple. He looked at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. At 14, he stood 6'8", his body a canvas of lean muscle and faded scars. His green eyes were calm, measured, holding depths of sorrow that no 14-year-old should possess. The paw pads on his palms were pink and soft, grotesquely gentle. People called him the Tyrant because when he fought, he was unstoppable, overwhelming, absolute. People who knew him called him the gentlest person they'd ever met. The contradiction didn't bother him anymore. He made breakfast, rice, miso soup. Simple, efficient, nourishing. As he ate, he reviewed his notebooks. Today was the UA entrance exam, the beginning of his path toward becoming a hero. Not because he wanted glory or fame, but because heroes protected people. Heroes bore the burden so others wouldn't have to. Heroes sacrificed. His phone buzzed. A message from Katsuki Bakugo, "Don't you dare fail today, Midoriya. I'm not going to UA without having someone worth surpassing." Izuku allowed himself a small smile. Bakugo had changed after witnessing Izuku's power 3 years ago. The explosive boy had stopped bullying, had started training with desperate intensity, had become not a friend, exactly, but something like a rival who respected him. It was more than Izuku had expected. He typed back, "I'll see you there." The morning air was cool as he left his apartment. The train to UA would take 40 minutes. He spent the journey reading his Bible, finding comfort in familiar passages. Other students stared at him. His height, his build, his unusual appearance made him impossible to ignore, but he paid them no mind. A girl with brown hair and a bright smile stumbled near him. He caught her with reflexive gentleness, steadying her without using his quirk. "Thank you," she said. "I'm so clumsy. I'm Uraraka Ochako. Are you taking the entrance exam too?" "Yes, Izuku Midoriya." He released her carefully, aware that his strength could hurt someone if he wasn't cautious. "Wow, you're really tall. And those marks on your hands, is that your quirk?" "It is." "What does it do?" Izuku considered his answer. "It repels things." "That's so cool. Mine makes things float. I'm trying to get into UA to help my parents. They work construction and I want to make their lives easier, you know?" Her earnestness was refreshing. Most people who learned about his power either feared him or wanted to exploit him. Uraraka simply accepted it and moved on. That's a noble goal, Izuku said. What about you? Why do you want to be a hero? The question pierced him. Why? Because his mother had believed he could be, because someone needed to protect people, because he'd failed once and couldn't fail again. To save people, he said simply, no matter the cost. Uraraka's smile dimmed slightly, as if she'd heard something in his voice that troubled her. But before she could respond, the train arrived at UA Station. The school loomed before them, massive and imposing. Izuku had studied its layout, its history, its philosophy. UA High School, the premier hero academy in Japan. All Might had graduated from here. Endeavor. Best genist. Legends had walked these halls. Today, Izuku would join them. Or he would fail, and his mother's dream would die with her. He wouldn't fail. The auditorium buzzed with nervous energy. Hundreds of applicants filled the seats, each one dreaming of heroism, of glory, of salvation. Izuku sat in the back, his height making him impossible to miss. He could feel eyes on him, whispers circulating. That's the Tyrant. I heard he took down 17 villains single-handedly. My cousin says he's got a record with the police. He looks scary. Izuku ignored them. Let them think what they wanted. Reputation was just another burden to bear. Present Mike bounded onto the stage, his voice amplified to painful levels. Welcome, listeners, to the UA entrance exam. I'm going to tell you how this goes down. The explanation was standard. Applicants would enter a mock city filled with robot villains worth different points. Defeat robots, earn points, rank high enough to enter UA. Simple. Efficient. A test of combatability and tactical thinking. One more thing, Present Mike announced. There's a special obstacle in each testing site, a 0-pointer. It's worth no points, so just run away from it. It's just an obstacle. Izuku's mind raced, a 0-pointer that students were encouraged to avoid. Why include it if it served no purpose? There had to be more to this exam than simple combat. UA wouldn't waste resources on a pointless obstacle. What did heroes do when faced with overwhelming threats? They protected people. A boy with blue hair and glasses stood up. Excuse me, the handout clearly lists 4 types of robots, but you've only mentioned 3. Such an error is unbecoming of Japan's top academy. Great observation, Present Mike said. But like I said, the 0-pointer is just an obstacle. Don't worry about it. The boy sat down, looking unsatisfied. Izuku caught Bakugo's eye across the auditorium. The explosive blonde smirked, a challenge in his expression. They'd been assigned to different testing sites, UA's way of preventing collaboration. Good. Izuku didn't need help. The applicants were ushered to changing rooms. Izuku pulled on the tracksuit provided, his movements economical and precise. Other students chattered nervously, forming alliances, psyching themselves up. He remained silent, centered, focused. The testing site was a miniature city, complete with streets, buildings, and alleyways. Robots of varying sizes waited beyond the gates, their red eyes gleaming with programmed hostility. The air hummed with anticipation. Present Mike's voice boomed across the speakers. And start! Nobody moved. What are you waiting for? There's no countdown in real battles. Go, go, go. The gates opened. Applicants surged forward, quirks activating in a cacophony of light and sound. Fire, ice, explosions, transformations. Power on full display as teenagers fought robots with desperate intensity. Izuku walked. A 1-pointer rolled toward him, its mechanical arms swinging. He raised his right hand. The paw pad on his palm compressed air. Pad cannon. The air itself became a weapon. Compressed to impossible density, then released in a devastating blast, the shockwave struck the robot dead center. It exploded backward, crumpling against a building wall, completely obliterated. He moved to the next one. A 2-pointer this time, faster, more aggressive. It lunged. He didn't bother with a named technique, just touched it with his left hand. The repulsion force sent it careening into a group of 3-pointers, the impact destroying all 4 robots simultaneously. Other applicants stared. Izuku continued walking, methodical and unstoppable. Robots came at him in waves. He repelled them with casual precision, each movement economical, each strike devastating. His paw pads glowed faintly as he compressed air, released shockwaves, repelled attacks with such force that the robots disintegrated on impact. This wasn't fighting. It was domination. A girl with a creation quirk was cornered by 5 robots. Izuku appeared beside her, his hand touching the ground. Pressure cannon. The resulting shockwave obliterated all 5 robots and cleared a path for her escape. "Thank you," she gasped. He didn't respond. Already moving to the next threat, his mind calculated trajectories, force vectors, optimal impact points. The Nikyu Nikyu quirk wasn't just about raw power, it was about precision, control. Understanding exactly how much force was needed to achieve the desired result. 30 robots destroyed in 5 minutes. His point total climbed, then the ground shook. The zero-pointer emerged from between buildings, a mechanical monstrosity 5 stories tall. Its footsteps cracked pavement. Its arms could crush buildings. It was designed to be intimidating, overwhelming, impossible. Applicants scattered, running from the unstoppable threat. Izuku heard the scream. A boy had tripped, his leg caught under rubble. The zero-pointer's shadow fell across him. Panic filled his eyes as the massive robot raised its fist, preparing to crush the obstacle in its path. Time seemed to slow. Izuku moved. His body repelled against the ground, launching him forward at impossible speed. He reached the boy in less than a second, pulling him free and pushing him toward safety. The zero-pointer's fist descended. Izuku raised both hands, paw pads forward. Ursus shock! The air between his palms compressed. Tighter, denser. The atmosphere itself groaning under the pressure. Then, release. A shockwave erupted. A massive paw-shaped blast of compressed air that caught the zero-pointer dead center. The robot's massive frame shuddered, buckled, and then was hurled backwards, crashing through 3 buildings before finally stopping, completely destroyed. Silence fell across the testing site. Every applicant, every camera, every observer, all focused on the tall, green-haired boy standing alone in the crater his attack had created, steam rising from his paw pads. Present Mike's voice was unusually quiet. "Well, that's new." Izuku checked on the boy he'd saved. "Are you injured?" "And no? You just... The exam is over. You should see Recovery Girl." Izuku turned and walked toward the exit, his expression unchanged, his heartbeat steady. Behind him, whispers started again. "The Tyrant. Did you see that? He destroyed it like it was nothing. That power, it's terrifying." Izuku pulled out his Bible as he walked, fingers tracing familiar passages. Power was terrifying. He knew that better than anyone. The ability to repel anything meant the ability to destroy anything. His quirk had no natural limits, only the limits he imposed on himself. And sometimes late at night, he wondered what would happen if he stopped limiting himself, if he let go, if he repelled the world itself. The thought scared him more than any villain ever could. The observation room was silent. Pro heroes lined the walls, their attention fixed on multiple screens displaying the entrance exam's aftermath. All Might stood at the center, his skeletal frame hidden beneath his hero costume, maintained through sheer force of will. Beside him, Principal Nezu sipped tea, his expression thoughtful. "That boy," Eraserhead said. "Izuku Midoriya, the one they call the Tyrant." "I know of him." All Might's voice was grave. 3 years ago, he manifested his quirk after his mother's death. Since then, he's stopped 14 villain attacks, saved 47 civilians, and never once asked for recognition or reward. "His power is extraordinary," Nezu observed. The Nikyu Nikyu quirk allows him to repel anything he touches with his paw pads. The applications are virtually limitless. He could theoretically repel light, sound, even abstract concepts like pain or fatigue. Has he demonstrated that ability? Midnight asked. "Twice. 6 months ago, a child was hit by a car. Midoriya arrived before the ambulance. He extracted the boy's injuries, physically removed the damage and pain from his body, and then repelled it into the air where it dissipated harmlessly. The child made a full recovery." The room processed this in silence. "He can remove injuries?" Present Mike said. "That's basically a healing quirk." "No," Nezu corrected. "It's far more complex. He doesn't heal, he repels the damage itself, the pain, the trauma, the physical harm. It all transfers out of the victim's body, but it has to go somewhere. In that case, he dissipated it safely. But theoretically, he could absorb it himself," All Might finished grimly. "Take someone else's suffering into his own body." Recovery Girl leaned forward. "Has he done that?" "We don't know. His medical records are sparse. He refuses most treatment, claims he doesn't need it." Aizawa pulled up a file on the main screen. Izuku's photograph stared out at them. Calm green eyes, soft features that contrasted sharply with his imposing build. An expression of quiet melancholy that seemed carved into his face. "His combat efficiency is extraordinary," Aizawa noted. "But look at his behavior during the exam. He didn't race for points. He moved methodically, destroyed threats efficiently, and immediately prioritized the civilian in danger when the zero-pointer appeared. He's not driven by competition or glory. Then what drives him? Midnight wondered. All Might knew. He'd seen that expression before on other heroes who'd lost too much. Izuku Midoriya was driven by guilt, by grief, by a desperate need to prevent others from experiencing the pain he carried. We need to accept him, All Might said quietly. This boy, he could become the greatest hero of his generation, or the most dangerous villain. We can't let him fall through the cracks. Agreed, Nezu said, but we must be careful. That level of power, combined with emotional trauma, it's a volatile combination. He'll need guidance, support, understanding. He'll need friends, Recovery Girl added. That boy looks so lonely it breaks my heart. The meeting continued, discussing class placements, training regimens, support systems, but All Might's attention remained on Izuku's photograph. Something about the boy's eyes haunted him, a depth of sorrow that no child should possess, a weight of responsibility that crushed most adults. What are you carrying, young Midoriya, and how long before it breaks you? Izuku sat alone in his apartment, the acceptance letter from UA unopened on his desk. He knew what it would say. He'd scored the highest in the practical exam, 97 villain points and 60 rescue points, a total that shattered records. Of course they'd accepted him, but acceptance wasn't relief. It was just another step forward, another burden added to the collection he carried. He thought about the boy he'd saved during the exam. The terror in the kid's eyes, the certainty of death, the desperate gratitude when Izuku had pulled him to safety. That look was familiar. He'd seen it on dozens of faces, people he'd saved, protected, rescued from villains and disasters and their own bad luck. Every time, he saw his mother's face superimposed over theirs. Every time, he remembered arriving too late. The Bible sat beside the letter. He picked it up, fingers finding his favorite passage without needing to look. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. Servanthood. Sacrifice. The foundation of true heroism. His mother had taught him that. She'd lived it every day, working 2 jobs to support them, always smiling, always kind, always putting others first. And it had gotten her killed. A villain with a blade quirk. A robbery gone wrong, her dying to protect a stranger's child. Izuku arriving just in time to watch her bleed out on the street, her final words a plea for him to be good, to be kind, to be the hero she knew he could become. He'd held her as she died, and something inside him had broken. The next day, his quirk manifested. Paw pads appeared on his palms overnight, soft and pink and grotesque. He discovered their power by accident, repelling a cup across the room when he tried to pick it up. Then he'd experimented, tested, pushed the limits of what he could do, and he'd realized he was holding the power of a god in his 2 young hands. The villain who'd killed his mother was captured within a week. Izuku had found him, touched him, and sent him flying 3 kilometers into a reinforced police station. Every bone broken, every organ bruised. Alive, but destroyed. The police had called it justice. The media had called it revenge. Izuku had called it inadequate, because his mother was still dead, and no amount of power could bring her back. He opened the acceptance letter. The holographic projection of All Might appeared, the symbol of peace's grin, wide and genuine. Young Midoriya, congratulations on your exceptional performance. You've been accepted into UA High School's Hero Course. Your demonstration of power, tactical thinking, and heroic spirit embodies everything we look for in future heroes. We look forward to watching you grow. The projection ended. Izuku stared at the empty space where All Might's image had been, heroic spirit. The phrase tasted like ash. He didn't feel heroic. He felt tired, burdened, trapped by a promise to a dead woman and a power he couldn't abandon. But he would go to UA. He would train. He would become a hero because someone had to protect people. And if the cost was his own humanity, his own happiness, his own life, well, that was just the price of power. He stood, walked to his small kitchen and began preparing dinner. Rice, fish, miso soup, the same meal his mother had made him every night. A ritual he maintained because it was the last connection he had to her, the last proof that she'd been real. As he cooked, he thought about the upcoming school year. New classmates, new challenges, new people to protect, new ways to fail. The thought settled in his chest like a stone. He'd carry it, like he carried everything else. Added to the weight pressing down on his shoulders, the burden that grew heavier every day, but that he refused to set down. Because if he stopped carrying it, if he let himself rest, what would he be? Just another person who'd failed someone who trusted him. He ate in silence, cleaned his dishes, and prepared for bed. Tomorrow, he would begin his first day at UA. Tomorrow, his new life would start. Tonight, he was still just Izuku Midoriya, the boy who'd lost his mother, the boy with paw-marked hands and a heart full of grief. The Tyrant. UA's campus was enormous, a sprawling complex of buildings designed to train the next generation of heroes. Izuku arrived early, his uniform crisp and his posture perfect. Other students stared as he passed, whispers following in his wake. He ignored them. Attention was inevitable when you stood 6'8" and had paw pads on your palms. Better to accept it than fight it. Class 1A's door was massive, clearly designed for students with size-enhancing quirks. He slid it open and entered. The classroom was already half full. Students clustered in groups, chattering excitedly about their first day. Izuku recognized several faces from the entrance exam. The girl with the creation quirk, the boy with engines in his legs, Uraraka, who waved enthusiastically when she saw him, and there, in the back, Katsuki Bakugo. The explosive blonde met his eyes and nodded, a gesture of acknowledgement between rivals. Izuku chose a seat near the window, settling his large frame into a chair that creaked under his weight. He pulled out a notebook, preparing to take notes, when a voice addressed him. "Excuse me, you're Izuku Midoriya, correct? The one who destroyed the zero-pointer during the exam?" The blue-haired boy with glasses stood at attention, his posture rigid and formal. "I'm Tenya Ida. I must apologize for my behavior during the presentation. I see now that the zero-pointer was indeed a test, not of combat ability, but of heroic spirit. Your immediate response to save that civilian despite the danger was exemplary." "Thank you," Izuku said quietly, "but I only did what was necessary." "Necessary? You destroyed a 5-story robot with a single attack. That level of power is extraordinary. Power means nothing if you don't use it to protect people." The words came automatically, a mantra he'd repeated to himself countless times. Ida's expression softened. "A noble philosophy. I believe we'll get along well, Midoriya." More students filtered in, a boy with half-red, half-white hair who radiated cold, a girl with a frog-like appearance and a calming presence, someone with a tail, another with pink skin and horns, a nervous blonde with a belt that sparked with electricity. Each one represented a different quirk, a different power, a different dream. Izuku observed them all, cataloging abilities and potential weaknesses. Not out of hostility, but habit. Understanding people's capabilities was crucial for effective teamwork. And in combat, knowing your allies' limits could mean the difference between victory and disaster. The door opened again. A girl with long black hair and a mature bearing entered, followed by a boy with purple balls for hair who immediately started making inappropriate comments. The girl, Yaoyorozu, Izuku remembered from the recommendation exam results, shut him down with icy politeness. Then came a disheveled figure in a sleeping bag. The entire class fell silent. The sleeping bag unzipped, revealing a tired-looking man with long black hair and bloodshot eyes. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down. Time is precious. Rational students would understand that. He stood, his presence immediately commanding despite his exhausted appearance. "I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher. Put these on and meet me outside." He tossed a bag of gym uniforms onto the desk and walked out. The class erupted into confused chatter, but Izuku was already moving. He recognized Aizawa, the underground hero Eraserhead, known for his capture weapon and his quirk that could nullify other quirks. A practical hero who valued results over flash. Outside on UA's training grounds, Aizawa waited with the patience of stone. "Today we're conducting quirk apprehension tests," he announced once the class assembled. "You've all been doing these since middle school, but never while using your quirks. UA doesn't believe in coddling students with pointless ceremonies. We're here to make heroes, not friends." He pulled out a small device. "The student with the lowest score across all 8 tests will be judged hopeless and expelled." The class erupted in protest. "That's not fair," someone shouted. Aizawa's smile was sharp. "Natural disasters, highway pileups, rampaging villains. The world is full of unfairness. It's a hero's job to correct it. If you think this is harsh, you're in the wrong profession. His eyes found Izuku. Midoriya, you scored highest in the entrance exam. Step forward. Izuku moved to the front, his expression calm despite every eye on him. Softball throw, Aizawa said, tossing him a ball. In middle school, what was your record? 67 meters. Now do it with your quirk. Anything goes, just stay in the circle. Izuku held the ball, feeling its weight. Around him, his classmates watched with curiosity and anticipation. They wanted to see what the Tyrant could do, wanted to witness the power that had destroyed a zero-pointer. He would show them, but not everything. He wound up using his athletic training to maximize his throwing form. At the moment of release, his right paw pad touched the ball. He didn't repel the ball itself. That would be too simple. Instead, he compressed the air behind it, creating a shockwave that propelled the ball forward at speeds that defied physics. The ball disappeared into the sky. Aizawa's device beeped. 1,372 meters. The class exploded into amazed chatter. Even Bakugo looked impressed, though he quickly schooled his expression into competitive determination. That's incredible, Uraraka gasped. With power like that, these tests will be a breeze for you. Ida added. Izuku said nothing. He'd held back significantly. If he'd used his full power, he could have sent that ball into orbit, but revealing the full extent of his abilities this early would be foolish. Better to keep some cards hidden. Aizawa's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he'd sensed Izuku's restraint. Impressive. Take your place in line. The tests continued. 50-meter dash. Izuku repelled himself forward, finishing in 3.04 seconds. Grip strength. He controlled the repulsion force to achieve 340 kilograms without crushing the device. Standing long jump, another application of self-repulsion, clearing the entire sandbox. Sustained sideways jumps. He moved like a blur, his body repelling against the ground repeatedly. Each test showcased different applications of his quirk, while carefully maintaining the illusion that he was using his full power. His classmates performed admirably, their own quirks on full display. Bakugo dominated through explosive force and competitive fury. The half-and-half boy, Todoroki, demonstrated precise control over ice and fire. Yaoyorozu created complex items with her creation quirk, but Izuku's results were consistently superhuman. When the final scores appeared, he ranked first. Bakugo second, Todoroki third. At the bottom of the rankings stood a nervous, purple-haired boy named Mineta. The class held its breath as Aizawa reviewed the results. And the person with the lowest score will not be expelled. What? The class shouted in unison. That was a logical ruse to draw out your full abilities. Of course, no one's being expelled on the first day. Relief washed over most students. Izuku felt nothing. He'd suspected the deception from the start. Aizawa struck him as too rational to waste a valuable student's slot on a demonstration of authority. However, Aizawa continued, his eyes finding Izuku again, some of you are clearly not using your full potential. Remember that. In this school, we expect nothing less than everything you have. Dismissed. As the class filed back toward the locker rooms, Izuku felt a hand on his shoulder. Aizawa's grip was firm but not threatening. Stay back, we need to talk. The others left. Soon only Izuku and Aizawa remained on the empty field. You held back, Aizawa said bluntly. Significantly. I used my quirk as requested. Don't play games with me, kid. I've read your file. I've seen the footage from the entrance exam. That Ursa's shock technique, you could have used it on the softball throw. You chose not to. Why? Izuku considered his answer carefully. Because showing my full power on the first day would make me a target. For villains, for rivals, for people who would seek to exploit or challenge me. Smart, tactical thinking. But here's the thing, Midoriya, UA isn't just about developing your quirk, it's about learning to use it responsibly, to understand its limits and applications, to become someone people can trust with power. I understand that. Do you? Aizawa's eyes were intense, searching. Because from where I'm standing, you look like someone carrying the weight of the world alone. That's not heroism, that's martyrdom, and martyrs don't live long enough to save anyone. The words struck deeper than Izuku expected. He met Aizawa's gaze, saw genuine concern there beneath the harsh exterior. I appreciate your concern, Sensei, but I know what I'm doing. That's what worries me. Aizawa released his shoulder. Go change. But Midoriya, if you ever need to talk, my door is open. I mean that. Izuku nodded and walked toward the locker room. Behind him, Aizawa watched with troubled eyes. In the changing room, Bakugo cornered him immediately. "Don't think I didn't notice, Midoriya. You were holding back. Everyone else was going all out, showing off their flashy quirks, and you just coasted through. I did what was required." "Bullshit." Bakugo's red eyes blazed. "You and I both know you could have dominated those tests, could have made everyone else look like extras, but you didn't. Why? Because drawing attention was dangerous, because revealing his full power would invite challenges he didn't want, because he'd learned that when people saw what he could really do, they either feared him or tried to use him, because sometimes being the strongest person in the room meant being the loneliest. Does it matter?" Izuku asked quietly. Bakugo stared at him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. "Yeah, it does, because if we're going to be rivals, I need you at your best, not this restrained version. We'll see." As Izuku left the locker room, he pulled out his Bible and found a passage he'd marked years ago. "To whom much is given, much will be required." He'd been given power beyond measure, and it required everything he had just to keep it controlled. Lunch at UA was a chaotic affair. The cafeteria buzzed with conversation, students from all departments mingling and trading stories about their first day. Izuku sat alone at a corner table, methodically eating rice while reviewing his notes from the morning classes. He preferred solitude. Not out of antisocial tendencies, but because being around others required constant vigilance. His strength was such that a careless movement could hurt someone. His quirk could activate with a stray thought. And the weight he carried made casual conversation feel like a performance, a mask he had to maintain to appear normal. "Mind if we join you?" Uraraka stood beside his table, accompanied by Ida and a brown-haired girl with a permanent blush on her cheeks. "Of course," Izuku said, gesturing to the empty seats. They settled in, Uraraka immediately launching into excited chatter about the quirk apprehension test. "That softball throw was amazing. How did you get it to go so far?" "I compressed the air behind the ball, creating a propulsive force. Basic application of my quirk's repulsion ability." "Basic?" Ida adjusted his glasses. "Midoriya, that technique demonstrated extraordinary precision and control. Most students with power-type quirks struggle with fine manipulation." "I've had 3 years to practice." The brown-haired girl, Uraraka introduced her as Ochako, spoke up shyly. "Your quirk? It's really something. Can you repel anything?" "In theory, yes. In practice, it depends on my understanding of what I'm repelling and my ability to control the force." He demonstrated by placing a paw pad against his water glass. "I could repel this glass, or just the water inside it, or the heat from the water, making it freeze. The applications are limited only by physics and imagination." "That's incredible," Ochako breathed. "You could do so much with a quirk like that." Izuku thought of his mother, of the villain's blade, of arriving too late. "Yes, if you know how to use it properly." Something in his tone must have registered because the table fell into brief silence. Uraraka, ever perceptive, changed the subject. "So what made you want to become a hero?" The question he'd been asked 1,000 times. The question he'd never answered truthfully. "Someone important to me believed I could make a difference. I'm trying to honor that belief." "That's beautiful," Ochako said softly. Before anyone could press further, an explosion of sound erupted across the cafeteria. Bakugo had apparently gotten into an argument with a silver-haired student from another class. The confrontation was escalating rapidly. Izuku stood. "Excuse me." He crossed the cafeteria in long strides, arriving just as Bakugo raised a sparking palm. Izuku's hand caught his wrist, gently, but with enough pressure to make his point clear. "Not here," Izuku said quietly. "We don't fight where innocent people could get hurt." Bakugo's eyes blazed, but he lowered his hand. The silver-haired student sneered. "What are you, his keeper? The big scary tyrant protecting poor little Bakugo?" Izuku turned his calm gaze on the student. Up close, he could see the boy wore a Class 1B uniform. "I'm preventing unnecessary conflict. Walk away." "Or what? You'll use your freaky paw quirk on me?" The cafeteria had gone silent, all eyes on the confrontation. Izuku felt the familiar weight settling over him. The burden of everyone's expectations, fears, judgments. They wanted to see what the tyrant would do, wanted to see if the rumors were true. He could end this easily. Touch the boy, repel him gently into a wall, make his point without causing injury. assert dominance and prevent future challenges. But that would prove nothing except that he had power. No, Izuku said simply. I'm asking you, as one student to another, to let this go. Whatever issue you have with Bakugo can be resolved through proper channels. Fighting in the cafeteria only gets everyone in trouble. The boy blinked, clearly not expecting reasoned discourse. Fine. Whatever. This isn't worth it. He walked away. The tension dissolved. Conversations resumed. Bakugo jerked his wrist free. I didn't need your help. I know. But you would have been expelled for fighting on school grounds, and that would have been a waste of your potential. Bakugo's expression cycled through anger, frustration, and finally grudging acceptance. Damn it, Midoriya. You're too reasonable. It's annoying. I've been told. They returned to their respective tables. Uraraka looked impressed. You handled that really well. Most people would have just let them fight. Fighting proves nothing except who's stronger in that moment. It doesn't resolve conflicts or change minds. Where did you learn that? Ida asked. Izuku thought of his mother, of her gentle voice teaching him that violence was always the last resort, that true strength lay in restraint, someone wise. The afternoon classes passed in a blur of hero, law, mathematics, and English. Izuku absorbed information efficiently, his mind cataloging everything for later review. By the time the final bell rang, he felt the familiar exhaustion settling into his bones. Not physical tiredness, but the mental strain of maintaining his careful composure all day. He was gathering his belongings when a voice addressed him. Midoriya. A word. All Might stood in the doorway, his massive form filling the frame. In person, the symbol of peace was even more imposing than on television, but Izuku could see something beneath the confident exterior, a weariness that matched his own. Yes, All Might. They walked to an empty classroom. All Might closed the door, then, to Izuku's shock, deflated. His muscular form shrank, revealing a skeletal man with sunken eyes and a weak posture. This is my true form, All Might said, his voice rough. An injury from years ago limits how long I can maintain my hero form. I'm trusting you with this because I believe you'll understand the burden of hiding your true self. Izuku said nothing, processing this revelation. I've been watching you, young Midoriya, your entrance exam, your performance today, your restraint in the cafeteria. You're carrying something heavy, aren't you? We all carry something. True, but some weights are heavier than others. All Might moved to the window, looking out at the setting sun. I saw your record. 3 years ago, your mother died. The next day, your quirk manifested. Since then, you've saved dozens of people, stopped multiple villain attacks, and never once sought recognition. Heroism isn't about recognition. No, but it is about balance, about knowing when to push forward and when to accept help, about understanding that even the strongest people need support. Izuku felt something crack in his chest, a tiny fissure in the armor he'd built around himself. What do you want from me? I want you to succeed, to become the hero you're capable of being. But I also want you to understand that you don't have to carry your burden alone. UA isn't just about training, it's about building connections, forming bonds, learning to trust others. Trust gets people hurt. I trusted my mother would always be there. I was wrong. The words came out harsher than intended. All Might's expression softened with understanding. Your mother's death wasn't your fault. You know that, right? Logically, yes. But logic doesn't change the fact that I wasn't strong enough to save her. That my quirk manifested too late. That if I'd been better, faster, stronger, she'd still be alive. You were 11 years old. Old enough to fail her. Silence fell between them. All Might seemed to be weighing his words carefully. I had a mentor once, he said finally. She died protecting people. I blamed myself for years. Thought if I'd been stronger, if I'd arrived sooner, I could have saved her. It nearly destroyed me. How did you move past it? I didn't. Not really. But I learned to carry it differently, to honor her memory by protecting others, by becoming the hero she believed I could be. The guilt never goes away, Midoriya, but you can choose what you do with it. Izuku looked at his paw-marked palms. 3 years of training, 3 years of saving people, 3 years of trying to fill the void his mother's death had created, and he was no closer to peace than the day she died. I don't know how to be anything other than this, he admitted quietly. The Tyrant. The strong one, the person who protects others because he couldn't protect the one who mattered most. Then let UA teach you. Let yourself be more than your trauma. Your mother wouldn't want you to sacrifice your entire life on the altar of her memory. The words hit like a physical blow. All Might was right. His mother had wanted him to be happy, to live fully, to embrace joy and connection. But accepting that felt like betraying her, like admitting that her death hadn't changed everything, even though it had. "I'll try," Izuku said. It was the most honest thing he'd said in years. All Might smiled, his real smile, not the camera-ready grin. "That's all anyone can ask. Now go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow's another day." Izuku left, his mind churning with thoughts he'd suppressed for too long. As he walked to the train station, he noticed someone following him. Todoroki fell into step beside him, his expression neutral. "Midoriya, I wanted to talk." "About what?" "Your power. I've never seen a quirk quite like it. The way you can repel anything, the precision of your control, it's remarkable." "Thank you." "My father is Endeavor, the #2 hero. He trained me from childhood to surpass All Might, to become the greatest hero through any means necessary. I rejected his fire. I only use my ice in defiance of him." Izuku understood immediately. You're limiting yourself because of family issues, and you're limiting yourself for different reasons. I can tell. You held back today. They walked in silence for a moment. "What's your point?" Izuku asked. "I want to understand you. Everyone at school already fears you. The tyrant who destroyed a zero-pointer, who could probably level the entire campus if you wanted to. But you're gentle, restrained. It's contradictory. Power without restraint is just destruction. I learned that early." "How?" Izuku stopped walking. He looked at Todoroki, saw genuine curiosity rather than judgment, and made a decision. 3 years ago, I watched my mother die. A villain killed her right in front of me. My quirk manifested the next day, and the first thing I did was hunt down her killer. I could have obliterated him, turned him into paste. Instead, I broke every bone in his body and delivered him to the police alive. Todoroki's eyes widened slightly. "I learned that day that power means nothing if you become the monster you're fighting against. My mother taught me kindness, compassion, sacrifice. Using my quirk to murder her killer would have dishonored everything she believed in. So I chose restraint. I choose it every day." "That's admirable. It's survival. Because if I ever let go, if I ever stopped restraining myself, I'm not sure I could stop." They reached the train station. Todoroki paused at the entrance. "I think I understand you better now. Thank you for sharing that." "Why did you want to know?" "Because everyone else sees the tyrant. I wanted to see Izuku Midoriya." He walked away, leaving Izuku alone with his thoughts. On the train home, Izuku pulled out his Bible and found the passage he'd been avoiding. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Rest. The concept seemed foreign. He'd been fighting for 3 years, carrying his grief and power like twin stones around his neck. The idea of setting them down, even temporarily, felt impossible. But maybe All Might was right. Maybe his mother would want him to find peace. Maybe it was time to try. The next morning brought a new challenge. All Might, in his hero form, stood before Class 1A in full costume, his presence dominating the room. "Welcome to Foundational Heroics. Today we'll be conducting battle trials. Heroes must know how to fight, how to save, and how to look good doing it. Costume time." Cases emerged from the walls, each labeled with a student's name. Izuku opened his to find a costume he designed months ago. A simple white shirt, black pants, dark gloves with cutouts for his paw pads, and a long black coat. No armor, no flashy elements. Just practical clothing that wouldn't restrict his movement. The changing room buzzed with excitement as students donned their costumes. Bakugo emerged in his combat outfit, all grenades and aggression. Uraraka wore a skin-tight pink and white suit. Ida's armor gave him a knight-like appearance. When Izuku emerged, the room fell briefly silent. His costume emphasized his height and build, making him look even more imposing. The coat billowed slightly as he walked, and the cutouts on his gloves drew attention to his paw pads. He looked like a final boss, a figure of quiet menace and overwhelming power. "Whoa," someone whispered. "He looks like a villain." Izuku heard it but didn't react. Let them think what they wanted. At the training ground, All Might explain the exercise. Heroes and villains, 2-on-2 indoor battles. The villains guard a weapon. The heroes must either capture the villains or secure the weapon within the time limit. He pulled names from boxes. First match, Midoriya and Uraraka as heroes versus Bakugo and Ida as villains. Bakugo's grin was feral. Finally, let's see what the Tyrant can really do. They were given time to prepare. In the waiting room, Uraraka looked nervous. Midoriya, I've never fought in a real battle before. What if I mess up? Then I'll adapt, but you won't mess up. Your quirk is versatile and powerful. Trust yourself. But Bakugo is so strong, and Ida is so fast. And I can repel anything. We have the advantage. Just follow my lead and focus on the objective. Her nervousness eased slightly. Okay, I trust you. The building was a maze of corridors and rooms. All Might's voice crackled through the speakers. Heroes, you have 10 minutes. Begin. Izuku and Uraraka entered through the ground floor. He immediately began calculating. Bakugo would want a direct confrontation. It was in his nature. Ida would guard the weapon with strategic precision. The smart move was to split them up. Uraraka, I need you to get to the top floor. Find alternate routes. I'll handle Bakugo. Are you sure? He's really powerful. An explosion rocked the corridor. Bakugo emerged from the smoke, his grin manic. There you are. No more holding back, Midoriya. Show me everything. Uraraka ran. Izuku stood his ground. You want to see my full power? Izuku said quietly. Very well. Bakugo launched forward, explosions propelling him at tremendous speed. Izuku raised his right hand. Pad cannon. The compressed air blast caught Bakugo mid-flight, sending him careening into a wall, but the explosive hero recovered instantly by using smaller blasts to stabilize himself. That all you got? I've seen you do better. They clashed in the narrow corridor, Bakugo's explosions against Izuku's repulsion. Every surface Bakugo touched became a launch point for another attack. Every attack Izuku repelled with calculated precision. You're not even trying, Bakugo roared, frustration evident. Stop holding back. I'm fighting exactly as much as necessary. Bullshit. Bakugo's next explosion was massive, intended to devastate. Izuku's paw pads caught it directly, repelling the force and heat back at Bakugo. The blonde hero barely dodged, his costume singed. Through the earpiece, Izuku heard Uraraka's voice. I found the weapon room, but Ida is guarding it. I can't get past him. Keep him distracted, I'm on my way. What about Bakugo? Izuku looked at his rival, saw the desperate need to prove himself, the fire that drove Bakugo to constant improvement. In another life, they might have been true friends. In this one, they were two people carrying different burdens, using conflict to avoid confronting their own demons. Bakugo, Izuku said, if you were to travel, where would you like to go? The bizarre question made Bakugo pause. What? Izuku's paw pad touched Bakugo's chest. The repulsion sent Bakugo flying backward through multiple walls across the entire building, landing him in a pile of foam padding outside. Non-lethal, precise, and completely overwhelming. In the observation room, students gasped. All Might's expression was unreadable. Izuku ran to the top floor, arriving to find Uraraka dodging Ida's high-speed charges. The engine hero's precision was impressive, but he was focused entirely on protecting the weapon. Uraraka, ceiling. She understood immediately. Her quirk activated, making herself weightless, launching toward the ceiling. Ida looked up, a critical mistake. Izuku's hand touched the floor. Pressure cannon. The shockwave rattled the entire room, disrupting Ida's balance. In that split second, Uraraka grabbed the weapon. Heroes win, All Might's voice announced. The exercise ended. Bakugo limped back inside, his expression a mix of fury and respect. The class returned to the observation room for analysis. That, All Might said, was a masterclass in tactical application of quirks. Midoriya, you identified your opponent's weaknesses and exploited them efficiently. Bakugo, your aggression was commendable but predictable. Ida, your defense was solid but inflexible. And Uraraka, excellent use of your quirk in combination with your partner. But the class was focused on Izuku. He just sent Bakugo flying through the building, someone muttered. Did you see how controlled that was? He could have hurt him badly, but he didn't. The Tyrant is terrifying. Izuku ignored the whispers. He'd done what was necessary to win, nothing more. The other battles proceeded. Todoroki and another student dominated their match using pure ice. Yaoyorozu demonstrated strategic brilliance. Each pair showcased their unique abilities and teamwork. But everyone kept glancing at Izuku. After class, Bakugo cornered him again. That move. The repulsion. You sent me flying like I was nothing. You weren't nothing. You forced me to use a stronger technique than I intended. Don't patronize me. Bakugo's hand sparked. I know you were still holding back. I saw it. You could have sent me through the entire building, maybe through multiple buildings. But you didn't. Because that would have injured you severely. The exercise wasn't worth that risk. I don't need you to protect me. I wasn't protecting you. I was preventing unnecessary harm. There's a difference. Bakugo stared at him, then laughed, that same bitter sound from before. You know what your problem is, Midoriya? You're so busy being noble that you forget other people want to stand beside you, not behind you. He walked away, leaving Izuku alone with the uncomfortable truth of that statement. That night, Izuku sat in his apartment, reviewing the day's events. He'd won easily, dominated the exercise, proven his tactical superiority. Everything he'd set out to do. So why did Bakugo's words bother him so much? His phone buzzed. A message from Uraraka. Thank you for today. You were amazing. Want to grab lunch tomorrow? Then Ida. Excellent teamwork, Midoriya. Your strategic mind is impressive. Even Todoroki sent a message. Interesting technique. We should spar sometime. People reaching out, trying to connect, treating him like a classmate, not just a weapon. Izuku looked at his paw-marked hands, at the Bible on his desk, at the photograph of his mother. You're going to be such a wonderful hero, her final words, her belief in him. But she'd never said he had to be a hero alone. Maybe it was time to stop carrying everything by himself. Maybe it was time to let people in. Just a little. 1 week into the school year, Class 1A boarded a bus to the USJ Unforeseen Simulation Joint, a massive training facility designed to prepare students for disaster rescue scenarios. All Might was supposed to accompany them but had used up his transformation time for the day. Instead, their homeroom teacher Aizawa led the trip. The facility was impressive. Different zones simulating various disaster environments. Floods, fires, landslides, each area designed to challenge students in unique ways. The rescue hero 13 greeted them, her round suit and gentle demeanor immediately putting students at ease. Welcome. Today we'll practice rescue operations in. Space tore open, a swirling purple portal appeared in the plaza and villains poured through. Dozens of them, led by a man covered in disembodied hands and a creature of pure muscle and exposed brain. What is this? 13 gasped. Villains, Aizawa said grimly. 13, protect the students. 13, evacuate and contact UA. What about you? I'll hold them off. Izuku's mind raced. Dozens of villains. Organized assault. They knew the schedule, knew All Might would be here. This wasn't random, it was calculated. Midoriya, Ida grabbed his arm. We need to run. But Izuku was watching Aizawa leap into combat, his capture weapon flying, his erasure quirk negating villain powers left and right. The underground hero was skilled, efficient, but overwhelmed by sheer numbers. The hand-covered villain, apparently their leader, spoke in a raspy voice. Where is All Might? We came to kill the symbol of peace. Someone told us he'd be here. Kill All Might. The implications were staggering. The purple portal appeared before the students. I am Kurogiri. We will scatter you across this facility. Our allies will kill you separately. Run, Aizawa shouted. The portal expanded. Students scrambled, but the darkness swallowed them, transporting them to different zones. Izuku felt the familiar sensation of forced teleportation. His body rejected it instinctively. His quirk activating on reflex, he repelled himself out of the portal mid-transport, landing in the central plaza where the main villains gathered. Alone. The hand-covered villain, Tomura Shigaraki, Izuku would learn later, tilted his head. Oh, you escaped Kurogiri's warp? Interesting. You must be strong. The muscular creature, Nomu, moved with predatory focus. Izuku assessed the situation. Aizawa was fighting multiple villains simultaneously, his quirk keeping them manageable, but his stamina limited. The students were scattered across hostile zones. No immediate backup. He was the only one who could stop this. If you were to travel, Izuku said quietly, raising his hands, where would you like to go? Shigaraki laughed. Bold words for a student. Nomu, kill him. The creature moved faster than something that size should, closing the distance in an instant. Its fist swung toward Izuku's head with enough force to pulverize concrete. Izuku's paw pad caught the fist. Pad cannon. The compressed air blast sent Nomu flying backward, crashing through the fountain. But the creature stood immediately, its destroyed arm regenerating in seconds. Regeneration, super strength, super speed. This thing was built to fight All Might. Shigaraki's expression shifted to delight. Oh, you're strong. But Nomu has multiple quirks. Hyper regeneration, shock absorption, super strength. It was made to kill All Might. A student can't possibly. Izuku moved, his body repelled against the ground, launching him forward at speeds that left after images. His right hand touched Nomu's chest before the creature could react. Ursa's shock. The massive paw-shaped shockwave erupted at point-blank range, catching Nomu directly in the torso. The creature's body compressed, the force driving it down into the ground, creating a crater 10 meters wide. Nomu stood again, regenerating, but slower this time. Impossible, Shigaraki whispered. That should have killed it. It has limits, Izuku observed. The regeneration isn't infinite. Every use depletes its energy. Enough damage fast enough will overcome it. He touched the ground. Pressure cannon. The shockwave destabilized Nomu's footing. Izuku followed with a palm strike directly to the creature's head, repelling it with such force that it crashed into the ceiling, fell, and crashed through the floor into the basement levels. Silence fell. Shigaraki stared at Izuku with what might have been fear. What are you? A student. Izuku's voice was calm, measured, despite his racing heartbeat. Leave now. Take your villains and go. No one else needs to die today. You're just one person. We have dozens of... Across the facility, explosions erupted. Bakugo, freed from whatever zone he'd been sent to, was obliterating villains with savage efficiency. Ice spread from another direction. Todoroki doing the same. The plan was falling apart. Kurogiri. Shigaraki's voice cracked. We need to. The entrance exploded. All Might arrived, his presence like a physical force, his expression more serious than anyone had ever seen. I am here! The symbol of peace had entered the battle. But All Might's eyes found Izuku first, saw the destroyed plaza, the unconscious Nomu pulling itself from the rubble, the multiple defeated villains, and he understood. Young Midoriya, you've already... I protected everyone, Izuku said simply. Aizawa-sensei is injured but stable. Most students are scattered but safe. The main threats are neutralized. But you're just a student. I'm the one who was here. Shigaraki's voice rose to a shriek. This isn't over. We'll kill All Might. We'll destroy everything you heroes have built. You can't stop us forever. All Might moved then, a blur of speed and power. One punch sent Shigaraki and Kurogiri flying. Pro heroes poured through the entrance. Backup had arrived. The battle was over. Nomu was restrained, barely alive. Villains were arrested. Students were gathered and accounted for. Miraculously, no one had died, though several had injuries. Aizawa was rushed to Recovery Girl, his arms fractured and his face bruised. And Izuku stood alone in the destroyed plaza, his paw pads smoking slightly from the exertion, his uniform torn, his body exhausted. All Might approached him carefully. Young Midoriya, what you did today was incredibly brave, but also incredibly dangerous. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. You took on a creature designed to kill me. Alone, at 14 years old. Someone had to. All Might's expression crumbled slightly. He saw it now. The weight Izuku carried, the burden he'd taken upon himself, the willingness to sacrifice everything that made him both extraordinary and heartbreaking. You're not responsible for saving everyone, All Might said gently. Yes, I am. That's what power means. That's what my mother taught me. Your mother would want you to live, not just survive. The words hit Izuku like a physical blow. He stumbled slightly. Exhaustion finally catching up, All Might caught him. Easy, young Midoriya. You've done enough. Let us handle the rest. As medical personnel checked Izuku for injuries, as the other students crowded around asking if he was okay, as the weight of what had almost happened settled over everyone, Izuku felt something shift inside him. He'd fought to protect people, had dominated a threat designed to kill the strongest hero alive, had proven his power was absolute when pushed. But at what cost? Looking at his classmates' worried faces, at Aizawa being carried away on a stretcher, at the destroyed facility, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, being the strongest wasn't the same as being the best hero. That night, recovering in his apartment, Izuku received visitors. Bakugo arrived first, kicking open the door without knocking. You idiot, fighting that thing alone. What if it had killed you? It didn't. But it could have. Bakugo's voice cracked. You're strong, Midoriya. Probably stronger than anyone else in our class, maybe stronger than most pro heroes, but you're not invincible, and if you died... He stopped, unable to finish. I would have regretted it, Izuku said quietly, but I would have done it anyway because that's what heroes do. No, that's what martyrs do, and martyrs are just dead idiots who didn't know when to ask for help. Bakugo left, slamming the door, then came Uraraka, bringing food. You need to eat. You used so much energy today. Ida arrived with a first aid kit. Proper wound care is essential for hero recovery. Even Todoroki stopped by, saying nothing, just sitting in companionable silence for 20 minutes before leaving. They cared. These people, these classmates he'd known for barely a week, cared about his well-being. When had that happened? Izuku pulled out his Bible, found the passage he'd been avoiding. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Not bear all burdens alone. Not sacrifice yourself on the altar of others' safety. Bear one another's burdens, together. Maybe he'd been doing this wrong. Maybe strength wasn't about standing alone against every threat. Maybe true power came from knowing when to fight and when to trust others to stand with you. His phone buzzed. A message from All Might. Recovery Girl says you'll be fine. She also says you're an idiot, and I agree. But you're a brave idiot. We need to talk soon. About your future. About what it means to be a hero. About letting people help you. Izuku typed back. I understand. Thank you. He looked at his mother's photograph, at her smiling face. I'm trying, Mom. I'm trying to be the hero you believed in, but it's hard. So hard. If she were here, she'd hug him. She'd tell him he was doing great. She'd remind him that being strong didn't mean being alone, but she wasn't here. And he had to figure out the rest himself. Outside, rain started falling, a gentle summer storm. Izuku opened his window, let the cool air in, and for the first time in 3 years, he allowed himself to cry. Not from pain, not from grief, from exhaustion, from fear, from the overwhelming weight of carrying everything alone. The tears fell, mixing with the rain, washing away nothing but feeling like a release nonetheless. Tomorrow, he would return to UA, would face his classmates, would continue training to be a hero. But tonight, he was just Izuku Midoriya, a 14-year-old boy who'd lost his mother, gained godlike power, and was still figuring out what it meant to be human. The Tyrant wept, and somehow that made him more of a hero than any display of power ever could. The weeks following the USJ incident were strange. The attack had shaken the hero community, organized villain assault on a hero school, multiple casualties among pro-heroes, the revelation of a creature specifically designed to kill All Might. But for Class 1A, life continued. Classes resumed, training intensified, and the sports festival approached. UA's sports festival was the biggest event in the hero calendar. Millions watched as students from the premier hero academy demonstrated their abilities, hoping to catch the attention of pro heroes for internships. It was performance, combat, and recruitment all rolled into one massive spectacle. Izuku wasn't interested in the spectacle, but he understood its importance. His mother had watched the sports festival every year, had pointed out heroes she admired, had dreamed of seeing her son compete one day, so he would compete. For her memory, if nothing else, training took new intensity. Aizawa returned after a week, his arms in casts, but his determination unshaken. The attack proved we need to push you harder, he announced to Class 1A. The sports festival is in 3 weeks. You'll train every day, no exceptions. The other classes viewed 1A with a mixture of respect and envy. They'd survived a real villain attack. Some considered them heroes already. Others thought they'd just been lucky. Izuku noticed the stares, the whispers. The Tyrant who defeated the Nomu. The first year who'd fought like a pro-hero. Reputation was a double-edged sword. During lunch one day, a purple-haired boy from Class 1C approached their table. You're Izuku Midoriya, right? The one who destroyed that Nomu thing? I am. I'm Hitoshi Shinso, General Studies. I wanted to say, at the sports festival, I'm going to beat you. The statement was bold, challenging. Other students at the table bristled, but Izuku saw something in Shinso's eyes. Determination born of being underestimated, of having a quirk people feared or dismissed, of wanting to prove himself worthy. I look forward to it, Izuku said genuinely. Shinso blinked, clearly not expecting that response. You're not going to tell me I don't stand a chance? That I'm from General Studies, so I should give up? Why would I? Everyone deserves the opportunity to prove themselves. Your background doesn't determine your worth. My quirk is brainwashing. People say it's villainous, that someone with my power can't be a hero. Izuku understood immediately. A quirk judged before its user even had a chance to define how they'd use it. Like having paw pads that could destroy cities, being feared for power rather than respected for restraint. People are wrong, Izuku said. A quirk is just a tool. It's how you use it that matters. Brainwashing could save hostages, prevent villain attacks, protect civilians. In the right hands, any quirk can be heroic. Shinso's expression shifted. Surprise, gratitude, determination. Thank you. Thank you. But I'm still going to beat you at the festival. I wouldn't expect anything less. After Shinso left, Uraraka smiled. That was really nice of you. I meant it. Everyone deserves a chance. Even though he basically declared war on you? Especially then, competition makes us better. If everyone just rolled over, we'd never improve. Bakugo snorted. Finally, something we agree on. The sports festival is where I prove I'm the strongest, where I surpass everyone, including you, Midoriya. We'll see. Training intensified. Izuku pushed himself harder, exploring new applications of his quirk. He could repel air to create barriers, repel gravity to fly briefly, repel kinetic energy to stop attacks. The Nikyu Nikyu quirk's versatility was limited only by his imagination. But he also worked on something else. Something he'd been avoiding. Pain extraction. The technique involved touching someone and physically removing their pain, their injuries, their suffering. He'd done it once before, saving that child hit by a car, but the process was risky. The pain had to go somewhere. If he wasn't careful, he'd absorb it himself. One afternoon, Recovery Girl called him to the infirmary. I've been reviewing your quirk applications, she said. This pain extraction technique, it's remarkable, but also dangerous. If you take someone's injuries into yourself, you could die. I know. And you'd do it anyway, wouldn't you? Izuku thought of his mother, bleeding out on the street, of every person he'd saved since, of the promise he'd made to protect others no matter the cost. Yes, Recovery Girl sighed. You children and your hero complexes, at least promise me you'll be smart about it. Don't absorb fatal injuries. Don't sacrifice yourself for nothing. I promise to be as careful as possible. That's not the same thing. It's the best I can offer. She shook her head but didn't press further. The days blurred together. Training, classes, studying, sleep, repeat. Izuku fell into a rhythm, his body adapting to the constant demands. One evening, All Might asked him to stay after class. Young Midoriya, I've been thinking about your fighting style. You're extraordinarily powerful, but you rely heavily on overwhelming force. Have you considered developing techniques that require less energy? I have, but against serious threats, overwhelming force is often necessary. True, but what about against opponents who can counter or absorb your power? What then? Izuku paused. He hadn't considered that. His quirk was so versatile, so absolute, that he'd rarely encountered situations where brute force failed. You're saying I need more options. I'm saying you need to think strategically beyond raw power. You're brilliant tactically. The USJ incident proved that. But power has limitations. Energy, stamina, situational constraints. A true hero adapts to any situation. The advice was sound. Izuku spent the next week developing new techniques. Smaller, more precise applications of his quirk. Repelling specific objects rather than everything. Creating air currents instead of shock waves. Learning to fight without destroying everything around him. It was humbling. Restraint was harder than release. Control was more difficult than destruction. But he learned. 3 days before the sports festival, Principal Nezu called him to his office. The principal sat behind an enormous desk, sipping tea with unsettling cheerfulness. Midoriya, thank you for coming. I wanted to discuss the sports festival with you. What about it? Your participation poses a unique challenge. You're extraordinarily powerful. Powerful enough that many pro heroes are already interested in recruiting you. But there's concern that your abilities might overshadow other students, that the festival will become the Izuku Midoriya show rather than a showcase for the entire first year. Izuku understood immediately. You want me to hold back. Not hold back exactly, but perhaps demonstrate restraint, show the world that you're not just power, but precision, strategy over strength. You're asking me to lose on purpose. No, I'm asking you to win intelligently. Use the minimum force necessary. Show the world what the Tyrant can do when he's not destroying everything in his path. It made sense. The world already feared him. Showing restraint, showing control, showing that he was more than just overwhelming power. that would serve him better long term. I understand. Good. Because between you and me, Midoriya, you're going to be a symbol someday. Maybe not like All Might, maybe not the symbol of peace, but a symbol nonetheless, and symbols must be careful about the message they send. That night, Izuku lay awake, thinking about symbols and messages and the weight of expectations. His mother had believed he could be a great hero. All Might saw potential for something more. His classmates viewed him as both protector and threat. The world called him the Tyrant. What did he want to be? The question haunted him. He'd spent 3 years defining himself by his power, by his ability to protect others, by the promise he'd made to his dead mother, but maybe it was time to define himself differently. Not as the Tyrant, as Izuku Midoriya, hero in training, student, friend. Maybe, if he let himself have friends. The sports festival would be his chance to show the world who he really was, not a monster with godlike power, a boy trying to honor his mother's memory while figuring out how to live. The stadium was enormous, packed with 50,000 screaming fans. Cameras broadcast to millions more watching at home. The energy was electric, overwhelming, a physical pressure that would crush most first-year students. Izuku stood with Class 1A in the waiting area, feeling nothing. No nervousness, no excitement, just the calm that came from accepting what was about to happen. He dressed simply, his hero costume minus the coat. Practical clothing that wouldn't restrict movement. His paw pads were on full display, pink and soft and grotesque. Midoriya, Todoroki approached, his expression serious. I'm going to win this festival. I won't use my father's fire. I'll prove I can surpass everyone with ice alone. That includes you. You're handicapping yourself out of spite, Izuku observed. Maybe, but I'll still win. We'll see. Present Mike's voice boomed across the stadium. Welcome to UA's Sports Festival, Japan's biggest event showcasing the next generation of heroes. Let's meet our first-year competitors. Class 1A marched out to thunderous applause. The crowd roared at familiar names, Bakugo, Todoroki, the students who'd fought at the USJ, and when Izuku emerged, the volume somehow increased. There he is, the Tyrant of Class 1A, Izuku Midoriya, the first year who defeated a villain designed to kill All Might. The nickname stung, but Izuku kept his expression neutral. Let them see calm, control. Not the monster they feared, Midnight served as the festival's chief referee, her provocative costume drawing wolf whistles from the crowd. Settle down. Now, for the student pledge, we have the first-place finisher from the entrance exam, Izuku Midoriya. Every eye turned to him. Izuku walked to the microphone, his tall frame making him impossible to ignore. The stadium fell silent, waiting for his words. He thought about what to say. Something inspirational, a declaration of intent, a challenge to his classmates? No, he thought of his mother, of her gentle voice, of her final words. I'm grateful for this opportunity, he said quietly, his voice amplified across the stadium. To everyone competing today, I look forward to seeing your full abilities. May the best hero win. The crowd erupted in cheers. Some had expected arrogance from the Tyrant. Others had expected coldness. None had expected genuine respect. Midnight grinned. Well said. Now for the first event, an obstacle race. The course circles the stadium, filled with challenges designed to test your abilities. Anything goes, as long as you stay on the course. On your marks. 42 students crowded at the starting line. Izuku positioned himself strategically in the middle, not front, where people would target him, not back where he'd have to fight through crowds. Get set. He took a breath, centered himself, felt the familiar sensation of his quirk humming beneath his skin, ready to be unleashed. Go. The crowd surged forward. Immediately, chaos erupted. Students with speed quirks shot ahead. Others used their abilities to gain advantages. Yaoyorozu created a pole vault, Ida activated his engines, Todoroki made his move. Ice erupted from his feet, flash freezing the ground, and the students caught in the initial surge. He pulled ahead immediately, using his quirk's versatility to both attack and create a path. Smart. Efficient. Exactly what Izuku would have done. But Izuku had different priorities. He could have repelled himself forward, could have launched past everyone and taken the lead instantly. But that would prove nothing except what everyone already knew, that he had overwhelming power. Instead, he ran. His athletic training served him well. While others struggled with the ice or fought through the crowd, Izuku's long strides ate up ground. He avoided confrontations, slipped through gaps, and maintained a steady pace. The first obstacle appeared. Enormous robots, the same zero-pointers from the entrance exam. Students scattered, some attacking, others trying to slip past. The robots swung their massive arms, creating chaos. Todoroki froze one solid. Bakugo exploded past another. Other students used creative quirk applications to navigate the threat. Izuku approached the nearest robot. Its shadow fell across him. Its fist descended. He touched it with his palm. The robot didn't explode, didn't fly backward. It simply stopped. Frozen mid-swing, its momentum completely negated by precise repulsion of its kinetic energy. Izuku walked past it while it stood paralyzed, its systems trying to understand what had happened. Efficient. Minimal force. Exactly what Nezu had suggested. The crowd went wild. Did you see that? Midoriya just stopped that robot without destroying it. What control? The second obstacle was a massive canyon crossed only by ropes and platforms. Fall meant elimination. Safety nets would catch students, but they'd be out of the race. Todoroki created an ice bridge. Others used flight quirks or swung on ropes. Izuku repelled himself across in a single jump, landing lightly on the far side. Third obstacle, a minefield. Explosive devices buried in the ground designed to slow but not seriously harm students. Careful navigation was essential, or overwhelming power. A pink-haired girl from support department, Hatsume, had created devices to float across. Bakugo exploded through, setting off mines, but using the blast to propel himself forward. Izuku walked through the minefield methodically. Each step, he touched the ground, repelling the explosive force before it could detonate. He didn't run, didn't rush, just moved with absolute confidence through what should have been an impossible obstacle. Behind him, other students struggled. Some tried to follow his path, only to discover he'd neutralized the mines. Others picked their way carefully through, setting off explosions that launched them backward. But Izuku just walked. And the crowd loved it. Incredible. Midoriya is treating the minefield like it's not even there. Such precision, such control. He emerged from the minefield in third place, behind Todoroki and Bakugo. Perfect. Not too dominant, not too weak. Showing his abilities without overwhelming everyone. The final stretch was a straight sprint to the stadium entrance. Todoroki had a commanding lead. Bakugo was closing fast. Izuku could have caught them easily. One repulsion against the ground would launch him past both, would secure first place without question. But that wasn't the point. He maintained his pace, finishing third, respectable, controlled, strategic. The crowd roared as the top 42 students crossed the finish line. Some had fought through brilliantly, others had struggled but persevered. Midnight announced the rankings. Shadow Todoroki, first place. Katsuki Bakugo, second. Izuku Midoriya, third. Bakugo immediately cornered him. You held back. Again. I used exactly as much power as necessary. That's bullshit, and you know it. You could have won easily. Winning isn't always the point. Then what is the point? Izuku looked at the celebrating students, at the crowd cheering for everyone's accomplishments, at the cameras broadcasting this to millions, showing the world we're more than our powers, that we can be heroes they trust, not just fear. Bakugo stared at him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. Still going to beat you in the next round. I look forward to it. The second event was announced, a cavalry battle. Teams of 4, protecting a point value determined by their ranking. First place wore a 10 million point headband. Todoroki's face went pale. Izuku immediately understood the strategy. Everyone would target first place. The person with the 10 million point headband would be under constant assault, forced to defend against all other teams simultaneously. It was designed to be nearly impossible. Perfect. Before teams could form, people approached Izuku. Midoriya, team up with us, Uraraka pleaded. Your power would guarantee victory. Ida added. Even students from other classes wanted him. His reputation as the Tyrant meant instant respect, instant fear from opponents. But Izuku saw the real challenge. I appreciate the offers, he said quietly, but I need to decline. This exercise tests teamwork and strategy. Anyone who teams with me will just rely on my power. You all deserve to prove yourselves without hiding behind the strongest person. But I'll be forming my own team. He looked across the waiting area, found who he was looking for. Hitoshi Shinso stood alone, no one approaching the general studies student with the villainous quirk. Shinso, want to team up? The purple-haired boy's eyes widened. You? The Tyrant wants to team with someone from General Studies? I want to team with someone who's been underestimated, someone who'll bring strategy over raw power. Your brainwashing quirk would be invaluable in this competition. Everyone's afraid of my quirk. Good. Let them be afraid. We'll use that to our advantage. Shinso's expression shifted from shock to determination. Okay. Who else? Izuku found 2 other students, a girl from support with gadget creation abilities and a quiet boy from general studies with a quirk that enhanced others' abilities temporarily. Not the strongest team, not the flashiest, but tactical, strategic, underestimated, perfect. Teams assembled. Todoroki had recruited Yaoyorozu, a girl with vine powers, and Ida, a powerful combination. Bakugo led a team of explosive personalities. Other groups formed based on friendships or tactical advantages, and Izuku's team stood ready. Here's the strategy, Izuku said quietly. We're not going for the 10 million point headband. We're going for survival and accumulation. We'll target teams that underestimate us, use Shinso's brainwashing to confuse opponents, and maintain mobility through my repulsion and your support gadgets. We're not going after first place, the support girl asked. First place will be a feeding frenzy, everyone targeting one team, chaos and violence. We let them fight it out, then strike when they're exhausted. That's actually brilliant, Shinso admitted. The cavalry battle began. Immediately, every team swarmed Todoroki. The half-and-half boy's ice erupted in defensive walls, his team working with practiced efficiency to protect the 10 million point headband. Bakugo's team went on the offensive, explosions everywhere. Yaoyorozu created defensive items, teams clashed, headbands changing ownership in rapid succession, and Izuku's team moved carefully through the chaos. Shinso, the team at 3 o'clock, get the rider to respond to you. Shinso called out, "Hey, your strategy sucks." The rider responded angrily and immediately went blank-eyed under Shinso's control. "Tell them to stop," Shinso commanded. The team froze. Izuku's team swept in, claimed their headband, and moved away before anyone noticed. They repeated the strategy again and again, never attacking directly, never drawing attention, just exploiting moments of chaos, using Shinso's brainwashing to create openings, accumulating points slowly but surely. The support girl's gadgets created diversions. The enhancement boy boosted everyone's abilities during critical moments. And Izuku's repulsion provided mobility and defense, gentle applications of his quirk that protected his team without revealing his full power. With 2 minutes remaining, Izuku's team had accumulated enough points to rank in the top 4. Then Todoroki's team lost the 10 million point headband. Bakugo's team claimed it in a devastating assault, explosions overwhelming Todoroki's defenses. The dynamics shifted instantly. All teams converged on Bakugo. "Now," Izuku said, "we move on Todoroki's team. They'll be demoralized, focused on reclaiming first place. They won't see us coming." His team moved with precision. While everyone else attacked Bakugo, Izuku approached Todoroki from behind. "If you were to travel," he said quietly, "where would you like to go?" Todoroki turned, recognition and understanding in his eyes. "Midoriya." "You," Shinso interrupted. "Your ice is impressive. Did you learn it from your father?" The question about endeavor made Todoroki respond instinctively. "I learned nothing from that." His eyes went blank. "Hand over your second highest headband." Shinso commanded. Todoroki's hand moved automatically. Izuku claimed the headband just as time expired. The rankings appeared. Bakugo's team first, Todoroki's team second, Midoriya's team third. They'd done it. The crowd erupted. Commentators praised Izuku's tactical brilliance, Shinso's effective use of a villainous quirk, the teamwork of underestimated students. Todoroki approached after the event, his expression unreadable. "That was well played. I underestimated you. You underestimated everyone who wasn't using overwhelming force. Strategy wins when power is equal." "Is it? Equal?" Izuku met his eyes. "No, but that's not the point. The point is proving you don't need overwhelming power to succeed." "Why? Why hold back when you could dominate everything?" Because his mother had taught him that power without restraint was just violence. Because being the strongest didn't make you the best hero. Because sometimes the most heroic thing you could do was let others shine. "Because I'm trying to be more than the Tyrant," Izuku said quietly. "More than just power, more than just strength. What are you trying to be?" "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." The final event was announced, one-on-one tournament matches. 16 students, elimination-style combat, a champion crowned before millions. Izuku looked at the bracket. His first match would be against Shinso, the boy who'd wanted to prove his quirk wasn't villainous. The student who'd been underestimated his entire life. Someone who'd finally gotten a chance to show his worth. And Izuku would have to crush that chance. Because that's what the tournament demanded. Because only one person could advance. Because sometimes being a hero meant making impossible choices. He thought of his mother. Of her smile. Of her belief that he could be something special, and he wondered if she'd be proud of what he'd become, or disappointed that he'd forgotten how to be anything other than strong. The one-on-one matches were scheduled for the next day, giving students time to rest and prepare. Izuku spent the evening alone, as usual, reviewing his opponent's abilities and considering strategies. Shinso's brainwashing activated when someone verbally responded to him. Once under control, the victim would obey until physically struck, or the effect wore off. Countering it was simple. Don't talk. But that felt wrong. Shinso deserved a real fight. Deserved the chance to demonstrate his abilities against someone who respected him. Winning through silence would be a hollow victory, proving nothing except that Izuku could exploit an obvious weakness. He thought about the tournament's purpose, to showcase abilities, to attract pro-heroes. To prove worthiness. For someone like Shinso, this was everything. His only chance to prove his quirk could be heroic, that he belonged in the hero course, that he was more than the world's prejudices. And Izuku would have to be the one to end that dream. The weight of it settled on his shoulders, another burden added to the collection. His phone buzzed, a message from All Might. Young Midoriya, remember, victory isn't everything. How you win matters as much as if you win. Show the world your character, not just your power. Character. The word felt foreign. He'd spent 3 years defining himself by power, by the ability to protect others, by sacrifice and strength. What was his character beyond that? The next morning, the stadium was even more packed than before. The tournament matches would be broadcast prime time, every fight scrutinized by millions. The first few matches passed in a blur. Todoroki dominated using only his ice, thus proving he could win without his father's fire. A girl with sound waves defeated a boy with hardening skin. Each match showcased unique abilities and strategies. Then came Izuku's match. Our next fight! Present Mike's voice boomed. From Class 1A, the Tyrant who defeated a Nomu designed to kill All Might, Izuku Midoriya, versus from Class 1C General Studies, the student with the controversial brainwashing quirk, Hitoshi Shinso. The two students faced each other across the arena. Shinso looked nervous but determined. Izuku appeared calm, but his mind raced with contradictions. Win quickly and show dominance, or give Shinso a real fight and risk complications. Begin, Midnight announced. Shinso spoke immediately. I heard you defeated that Nomu alone. Must have been scary. The obvious bait. Izuku said nothing, moving forward with measured steps. Silent, huh? Smart, but also kind of disrespectful. I'm trying to have a conversation here. Still nothing. Izuku closed the distance. You know what everyone says about you? That you're terrifying. That you could be a villain if you wanted to. That your power makes you dangerous. Closer now. Just a few more steps. They say the same about me. That my quirk is villainous. That I can't be trusted. That I should just give up on being a hero. Izuku stopped. The words hit harder than expected, because he understood. He'd heard the same things, seen the same fear in people's eyes when they learned what he could do. But I'm not giving up, Shinso continued, his voice cracking slightly. I'll prove them wrong. I'll show the world that my quirk can be heroic, that I belong here, that I'm worthy. And Izuku made his decision. You are worthy, he said. Shinso's eyes widened. What? And then Izuku felt his mind go blank. The brainwashing took hold. His body no longer responded to his will. Shinso's voice echoed in his consciousness. Turn around and walk out of bounds. Izuku's body moved automatically, walking toward the boundary line. The crowd gasped. Commentators shouted in shock. How had the Tyrant fallen for such an obvious trick? But inside his blank mind, Izuku was aware. The brainwashing suppressed his conscious control but didn't erase his consciousness. He was present, watching his body betray him, and he felt something, a presence. Massive, warm, sad, like a gentle giant watching from impossibility far away, crying. You don't have to do this, a voice whispered. Not his voice, not his thought. You're strong enough to break free. Of course he was. His quirk could repel anything, including mental effects. A simple application of his power, repelling the brainwashing from his mind, and he'd be free. But breaking free meant Shinso lost, meant his demonstration ended, meant the world would see his quirk fail against someone strong enough to resist. Sometimes, Izuku thought back to the presence, the strongest thing you can do is let someone else win. That's not strength. That's sacrifice. What's the difference? Silence. Then, softly, I'm not sure anymore. Izuku's foot touched the boundary line. One more step and he'd be out of bounds. Disqualified. Eliminated. Shinso's dream would continue. The boy would advance, would get to fight again, would prove to one more person that his quirk could be heroic, and all it would cost was Izuku's tournament run. Worth it. His foot crossed the line. Midoriya is out of bounds. Winner. Hitoshi Shinso. The crowd exploded. Commentators screamed in confusion. How had the Tyrant lost to a general studies student? What had happened? Shinso released his control, shock evident on his face. You let me win. Izuku's awareness returned fully. He met Shinso's eyes, saw the understanding there. No, you won. You used your quirk effectively, exploited my willingness to engage honestly, and achieved victory. That's what heroes do. But you could have broken free. I felt it. You were strong enough to... Strength isn't everything. You deserve this win. Make it count. He walked away, leaving a stunned Shinso in the arena. The commentators were losing their minds. What just happened? Did Midoriya just lose intentionally? Or was Shinso's brainwashing really that powerful? In the stands, All Might watched with knowing eyes. He'd seen what Izuku did, understood the choice, and he wasn't sure if he should be proud or concerned. Recovery Girl shook her head. That boy and his martyr complex. He gave up his tournament run to validate someone else's dream. Is that noble or foolish? Aizawa asked. Both. Definitely both. Izuku returned to the waiting area where his classmates stared at him in confusion. You lost, Bakugo said flatly. You actually lost. Yes. On purpose. Shinso deserved to advance. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This is a competition. You fight to win. Why? To prove I'm strong? Everyone already knows that. Shinso needed this opportunity more than I needed another victory. Bakugo looked like he wanted to explode something. You're impossible. You know that? Completely impossible. Uraraka approached hesitantly. Midoriya, that was really kind, but also kind of sad. Don't you want to win? Did he? Izuku wasn't sure anymore. Winning proved strength, but strength wasn't the question. He knew he was strong. The world knew he was strong. What he was trying to prove was that he could be more than strong, that he could be human. The tournament continued. Bakugo demolished his opponent with explosive fury. Todoroki advanced using ice alone. Other students fought brilliantly or fell short. And Izuku watched from the sidelines, eliminated in the first round, his tournament run over before it really began. That night, the media exploded. Tyrant falls. Midoriya defeated in first round. Was Shinso's brainwashing really that strong? Did the Tyrant throw the match? Opinions were divided. Some praised Izuku's apparent humility. Others condemned him for not trying his hardest. Pro-heroes debated whether his loss showed weakness or character. Izuku ignored all of it. He sat in his apartment, Bible open to a familiar passage. The greatest among you will be your servant. His mother had lived that philosophy, had sacrificed everything to serve others, to be kind, to help people, even when it cost her. It had gotten her killed, but it had also made her extraordinary, had made her someone worth honoring, worth remembering, worth trying to emulate. So maybe throwing the match wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the most heroic thing he'd done at the entire festival. His phone buzzed. A message from Shinso. Thank you. I don't know why you did that, but thank you. I'll make it count. I promise. Izuku smiled. First time in weeks. And for a moment, the weight on his shoulders felt just a little bit lighter. The sports festival continued over the next 2 days. Shinso advanced to the semifinals before losing to Todoroki, but not before proving his quirk's worth to multiple pro heroes. He received 3 internship offers. Bakugo won the entire tournament, defeating Todoroki in a brutal final match that left both students exhausted. The explosive hero stood on the podium, his expression more angry than triumphant, because Izuku wasn't there to beat. At the award ceremony, All Might presented medals to the top 3. Bakugo accepted his first place medal but looked unsatisfied. Todoroki took second place silently. The third place winner, a girl with acid powers, beamed with pride. Izuku watched from the stands, alone as always, wondering if his mother would have been disappointed. He'd thrown a match, had given up his chance at glory, at recognition, at proving himself to pro heroes, but he'd validated someone else's dream, had shown that strength came in forms other than overwhelming power, had proven that the Tyrant could be more than just destructive force. Wasn't that worth something? That night, All Might asked to meet him privately. They stood on Yue's rooftop, the city lights stretching to the horizon. All Might was in his skeletal form, looking tired and old. "Young Midoriya," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something I haven't told anyone else." "What?" "I'm dying. The injury that limits my hero form, it's getting worse. Within a few years, I won't be able to be All Might anymore. The symbol of peace will fall." The revelation should have shocked Izuku, but somehow it made sense. The greatest hero carrying an impossible burden, sacrificing everything to protect others. Just like him. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I see myself in you. The same willingness to sacrifice everything, the same burden of overwhelming power, the same loneliness that comes from being stronger than everyone around you." All Might turned to face him, but I also see the same mistake I made. The mistake of carrying everything alone, of thinking that being strong means never showing weakness, of becoming a symbol instead of remaining human. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that throwing that match was both the most heroic and most concerning thing I've seen you do. Heroic because you put someone else's needs above your own glory. Concerning because you don't value yourself enough to care about your own dreams. My dream is to protect people. And what about being happy? What about having friends? What about living instead of just existing?" The questions pierced him because he didn't have answers, hadn't thought about them in 3 years. Since his mother died, he'd been surviving, training, fighting, saving people. But living? Actually experiencing joy, connection, peace? No, he'd forgotten how. "I don't know if I can be happy anymore," Izuku admitted quietly. "Every time I try, I remember what I lost, who I failed to save, and the guilt crushes me." "Your mother wouldn't want that." "My mother is dead." The words came out harsher than intended. All Might winced, but didn't retreat. "Yes, she is. And that's a tragedy you'll carry forever. But Midoriya, your mother died. You didn't. And living in her memory doesn't mean sacrificing your entire existence on the altar of her death." "Then what does it mean?" "It means honoring her by becoming the person she believed you could be. Not just a hero, not just strong, but wholeman, happy." Izuku looked at his paw-marked hands. 3 years of power, 3 years of sacrifice, 3 years of being the Tyrant, and he was so tired. "I don't know how to be that person anymore." "Then learn. UA isn't just about developing your quirk, it's about developing yourself, making friends, building connections, discovering who you are beyond your power." "What if I'm nothing beyond my power?" All Might's skeletal hand gripped his shoulder. "Then you'll be the saddest person I've ever met, because you're capable of so much more." They stood in silence for a long time, two people carrying impossible burdens, trying to figure out how to be more than their strength demanded. Finally, All Might spoke again. "I'm offering you something. My power, my legacy, the ability to become the next symbol of peace." Izuku's eyes widened. "What?" "My quirk, one for all. It's transferable. Stockpiled strength passed from user to user, each generation adding to the power. I inherited it from my mentor. Someday, I need to pass it to someone worthy." "Why me? I already have a quirk. Because you have the heart of a hero, the willingness to sacrifice, the strength to endure. But more importantly, because you need something to live for beyond just existing, a purpose that's about building, not just protecting." I don't know what to say. "Say you'll think about it. Say you'll try to be more than the Tyrant. Say you'll let yourself have a life beyond sacrifice." Izuku thought about Shinso's gratitude, about his classmates' concern after the USJ, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could be more than his grief. "I'll try. That's all I ask." They parted ways. Izuku returned to his apartment, his mind churning with possibilities and fears, one for all. The power that made All Might the greatest hero. Combined with his Nikyu Nikyu quirk, he'd be unstoppable, godlike, capable of literally anything. But did he want that? More power? More burden? More weight to carry? Or did he want what All Might was really offering, a chance to be part of something larger than himself, to have a legacy, to matter not just as power, but as a person? He pulled out his Bible, found the passage he needed. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Hope, future. Concepts that seemed foreign, but maybe it was time to try. He looked at his mother's photograph, at her smiling face. "I'm gonna try, Mom. Try to be more than just strong. Try to live, not just survive. Try to honor you by being happy, not just by sacrificing everything." The photograph didn't respond, but somehow he felt like she'd approve. The following week, internships began. Despite his first-round elimination, Izuku received multiple offers. Pro heroes saw beyond the loss, recognized the tactical brilliance, the character, the potential. He chose Gran Torino, All Might's former mentor, a tiny old man with incredible speed and devastating power. "So you're the kid All Might's interested in," Gran Torino said, studying Izuku with sharp eyes. "The Tyrant, boy who could level cities but chooses not to." "Yes, sir." "Why?" "Because destruction is easy, restraint is hard, and heroes should choose hard over easy." Gran Torino laughed. "Good answer. Now let's see if you can back it up. This week, I'm going to beat the absolute hell out of you." And he did. Gran Torino was faster than anything Izuku had ever fought, more skilled, more tactical. Every fight ended with Izuku on the ground, learning humility and strategy. But he also learned something else. How to smile during combat, how to enjoy the challenge, how to fight not out of necessity or duty, but because improving was satisfying, how to be human again, just a little. On the final day of internship, Gran Torino sat across from him, looking contemplative. "All Might told me about One for All, about his offer." "I haven't decided yet." "Good. You shouldn't rush this, but let me tell you something, kid. Power isn't the problem. The problem is thinking power defines you. You're not your quirk, you're not your strength, you're Izuku Midoriya, and figuring out who that is, that's the real challenge." "How do I do that?" "By living, by making mistakes, by letting people in, by being more than your trauma." The words echoed All Might's advice. Two of the greatest heroes he knew, telling him the same thing. Maybe it was time to listen. Izuku returned to UA for the second semester. His classmates noticed the change immediately. He smiled more, talked more, participated more. Not much. Not a complete transformation. But progress. He joined Uraraka and Ida for lunch regularly, trained with Bakugo, pushing each other to improve, talked philosophy with Todoroki, shared his notebooks with classmates who wanted to improve their quirk applications. Slowly, painfully, he started building connections, started being more than alone, and it hurt. Because getting close to people meant risking loss again, meant potentially experiencing the same pain he'd felt when his mother died, but it also felt good, right? Like remembering a part of himself he'd thought dead. One evening, 2 months after the sports festival, All Might called him to the rooftop again. "Young Midoriya, have you made your decision?" Izuku looked at the city lights, thought about his journey, about power and sacrifice and what it meant to be human. "I'll accept One for All," he said quietly. "Not because I want more power, but because I want to be part of something, to have a legacy, to honor my mother by becoming the hero she believed in, not just strong, but whole." All Might's smile was genuine, warm. "That's the right answer. Not yes, I want power, but yes, I want connection." He plucked a hair from his head. "Eat this." "What?" "My DNA transfers the power. Just eat it." Izuku accepted the hair with bemused dignity and swallowed it. Nothing happened. "Give it time," All Might said. "One for All needs to settle. Within a few weeks, you'll feel it activating, and then what? Then you'll be even more powerful than you already are. And the real challenge will be remembering that power isn't what makes you a hero. Humanity is." They stood together, teacher and student, both carrying impossible burdens, both trying to figure out how to be more than their strength demanded. And for the first time in 3 years, Izuku Midoriya felt something like hope. 3 months later, Izuku stood before his mother's grave. He visited every week, bringing fresh flowers, talking to her about his progress, about UA, about his friends, about the person he was slowly becoming. "I threw a match at the sports festival," he said to the gravestone. "Let someone else win because they needed it more than I did. Bakugo says I'm an idiot. All Might says I'm noble. I think you'd understand. The wind rustled the flowers. I'm trying to be happy, Mom. It's hard. Every time I laugh, I remember I couldn't save you. Every time I make a friend, I'm terrified of losing them. Every time I use my power, I wonder if I could have used it sooner 3 years ago. He touched the gravestone gently, his paw pad soft against the cold marble. But I'm trying, for you, because you believed I could be extraordinary. Not just strong, extraordinary. Human and powerful, gentle and overwhelming, the tyrant with a heart. A presence settled beside him. He didn't need to look to know who it was. Hey, Uraraka said softly. I figured I'd find you here. How did you know where I'd be? You come here every week, same day, same time. I've known for a while, just didn't want to intrude. She placed her own flowers next to his. Your mom sounds like she was amazing. The way you talk about her, she must have been special. She was. I lost someone too, my grandmother. She raised me when my parents were working, taught me about kindness and service. I think she'd like your mom. Izuku looked at Uraraka, really looked. Saw the genuine compassion, the understanding, the lack of fear despite his power. Thank you for coming. That's what friends do. Friends. The word still felt strange, but less foreign than before. They stood together, two students carrying different griefs, finding comfort in shared silence. As the sun set, Izuku made a promise to his mother. I'll keep trying, keep growing, keep being more than just strong. I'll honor you not by sacrificing everything, but by living fully, by being the hero you believed in. He left the cemetery with Uraraka, their conversation light, normal, talking about homework and training and the upcoming exams, being human, being more than the tyrant. And somewhere in whatever came after, Izuku Midoriya smiled. Her son was finally learning to live again. The morning after his visit to his mother's grave, Izuku woke to a sensation he hadn't felt in years, one for all settling into his body like a second heartbeat. The power thrummed beneath his skin, adding layers to his already formidable strength. He flexed his hand, watching the paw pad compress slightly, and felt the dual nature of his abilities merging. He was now something unprecedented. The Nikyu Nikyu no Mi's absolute repulsion combined with One for All's stockpiled strength. Theoretically, he could punch with All Might's force and repel the impact back at his target, doubling the devastation. He could compress air with One for All's speed and release it with pad cannon's precision. The possibilities were terrifying, but power had never been his problem. Control had, purpose had. Knowing when to use overwhelming force and when to show restraint, his phone buzzed. A message from Principal Nezu. Please report to my office immediately. Urgent. Izuku dressed quickly, his mind already calculating possibilities. Urgent summons usually meant villain activity, threats to the school, or something requiring his specific abilities. He'd become the go-to student for dangerous situations, a reputation that both honored and burdened him. The campus was quiet this early. Most students still slept, recovering from the previous week's brutal training sessions. Izuku walked alone through the morning mist, his footsteps echoing against empty buildings. Nezu's office door was open. Inside, the principal sat with several pro-heroes Izuku didn't recognize, except for one, Sir Night-Eye, All Might's former sidekick known for his foresight quirk that could predict the future. Midoriya, Nezu said gravely, thank you for coming. We have a situation. Izuku sat, noting the tension in the room. Whatever this was, it was serious. Sir Night-Eye spoke, his voice clipped and professional. 3 days ago, we received intelligence about an underground villain organization called the Shueisha. They're Yakuza, old-school organized crime, but they've recently begun moving into quirk-related activities. He pulled out a photograph, a young girl with white hair and a horn protruding from her forehead. She looked terrified, malnourished, her eyes hollow with suffering. This is Eri, age 6. We believe she's being held captive by the organization's leader, Kai Chisaki, also known as Overhaul. His quirk allows him to disassemble and reassemble matter at the molecular level. Izuku's paw pads tingled, not with power, but with the instinctive need to protect. That child looked like she'd been through hell. What are they doing to her? His voice was dangerously quiet, Nezu answered. We're not entirely certain, but our intelligence suggests they're using her quirk somehow. Eri's ability is unique. She can rewind living things to previous states. Theoretically, she could heal injuries, reverse aging, even eliminate quirks entirely. They're experimenting on her. It wasn't a question. We believe so. Creating quirk-destroying bullets using her blood and tissue. The implications are catastrophic. Heroes losing their quirks, society's power balance collapsing, chaos. Sir Night-Eye leaned forward. We're planning a raid. Multiple pro-heroes, coordinated assault on their compound, but there's a complication. He hesitated, and Izuku saw something in his expression. Fear, maybe, or recognition of something terrible. My foresight quirk showed me possible futures of this raid. In most timelines, we succeed in rescuing Eri, but in all of them, someone dies, sometimes multiple heroes, sometimes civilians caught in the crossfire. The future isn't fixed, but the pattern is consistent. This raid will cost lives. And you want me there to minimize casualties, Izuku said. More than that, I saw you specifically in several futures. In the ones where you participate, fewer people die. Your power can protect people, can repel attacks that would otherwise be fatal. You're 14 years old, and I hate asking this of you, but I'll do it. The words came without hesitation. A child was suffering. People would die without intervention. He had the power to help. What else mattered? Nezu's expression was unreadable. The raid is scheduled for this weekend. You'll be assigned to the infiltration team with several pro-heroes. Your role is primarily protection. Use your repulsion to shield heroes and civilians, neutralize threats without excessive force, and if possible, protect Eri during the extraction. Understood. Midoriya, Sir Night-Eye said quietly. In the futures I saw, you don't come out of this unchanged. Something happens during the raid, something significant. I couldn't see clearly what, but the pattern suggests sacrifice, loss. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know participating in this operation will cost you something. Izuku thought of his mother, of every person he'd saved by paying whatever price was necessary, of the promise he'd made to protect others no matter what. Every choice costs something, he said, but some costs are worth paying. He left the meeting with detailed briefing materials and 3 days to prepare. The raid would happen Saturday morning, coordinated with police and multiple hero agencies. The Shi Hasaikai compound was a fortress. Underground tunnels, armed guards, villains with dangerous quirks. And somewhere inside, a 6-year-old girl was being tortured. Izuku spent those 3 days training harder than ever. He pushed One for All to its limits, learning to combine it with his existing abilities. Pad Cannon, powered by stockpiled strength, created shockwaves that could level buildings. Ursa's Shock at full power became a localized earthquake. But he also practiced restraint. Precise applications, protecting multiple targets simultaneously, using his power to shield rather than destroy. Because if Sir Night-Eye's vision was accurate, this raid would test everything he'd learned about being a hero. On Friday night, he visited his mother's grave again. I'm going on a dangerous mission tomorrow, he said to the gravestone. A little girl needs help. 6 years old, Mom. The same age I was when my quirk manifested. She's scared and hurt and alone. He placed fresh flowers, his paw pad gentle against the marble. I know you'd tell me to be careful, to come home safe, but if it comes down to saving her or protecting myself, you know what I'll choose. You'd make the same choice. The wind rustled through the cemetery, carrying the scent of rain. I love you, Mom. Everything I do, every person I save, it's all for you. Because you taught me that some things are worth any sacrifice. He left as thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm was coming. Saturday morning arrived with gray skies and cold wind. Izuku stood with the infiltration team outside the Shi Hasaikai compound, a nondescript building that hid underground labyrinths. The team included Sir Night-Eye, several pro-heroes Izuku had studied but never met, and surprisingly, 3 other UA students who'd been selected for internships with participating agencies. Kirishima was there, his hardening quirk making him ideal for frontline combat. Tsuyu, whose abilities allowed infiltration and reconnaissance, and Uraraka, whose zero gravity could provide tactical advantages. They all looked nervous, but determined. Sir Night-Eye reviewed the plan one final time. Primary objective, rescue Eri. Secondary objective, apprehend, overhaul, and dismantle the organization. Teams will enter through multiple access points, converging on the suspected location of their laboratory. Remember, Overhaul's quirk is lethal. One touch and he can disassemble you at the molecular level. Avoid direct contact at all costs. He looked at Izuku specifically. Midoriya, your role is protection. Keep heroes alive. Shield civilians. If you encounter overhaul, retreat and call for backup. Don't engage alone. Izuku nodded, already knowing he'd ignore that order if necessary. The raid began with explosive precision. Police cordoned off the area. Heroes breached the compound from 6 different points. Villains responded with immediate violence. Izuku's team descended into the underground tunnels, where narrow corridors and poor lighting created a claustrophobic nightmare. Armed guards appeared, firing weapons. A hero with a shield, my quirk, deflected the bullets, but the space was too confined for effective combat. Izuku raised his hand. Pad cannon. The compressed air blast wasn't lethal, he'd calibrated it carefully. But it was overwhelming. Guards flew backward, their weapons repelled from their hands, their bodies slammed into walls hard enough to knock them unconscious, but not kill them. The team advanced deeper. They encountered their first serious villain 2 levels down, a man who could shift the corridor's structure, creating walls and obstacles. The space became a maze, heroes separated from each other. Izuku found himself alone with Kirishima in a dead-end corridor. Behind them, the walls sealed shut. Ahead, 3 villains emerged. "Looks like we're trapped," Kirishima said, activating his hardening. "You good?" "Yes." The villains attacked simultaneously. One shot acid, another created blade-like projections, the third manipulated gravity to throw debris. Izuku touched the ground. "Pressure cannon!" The shockwave destabilized everything. The acid dispersed, the blades repelled, the debris fell harmlessly. The villains stumbled, and Kirishima charged forward, his hardened fists delivering knockout blows. "Damn, Midoriya, your power is insane!" "It's necessary. Can you break through that wall?" "On it!" They fought their way deeper, reuniting with the team. Sir Night-Eye looked shaken. His foresight was showing him something, but he didn't share what. They found the laboratory 3 levels underground, a massive space filled with equipment, test tubes, and in the center a small figure in a white dress. Eri. She looked worse than her photograph. Bandages covered her arms, her horn was cracked, her eyes held such profound emptiness that Izuku felt his chest tighten. A child. They'd done this to a child. "Eri," Sir Night-Eye called. "We're heroes. We're here to..." The floor exploded. Overhaul emerged from below, his plague doctor mask giving him an inhuman appearance. His hands were bare, fingers twitching with barely contained power. "Heroes," he said with disgust. "Contaminating my laboratory. Trying to steal my property. Did you really think I'd let you take her?" "She's not property," Kirishima shouted. "She's a kid. She's a tool. A means to restore the world to its proper order, and you're all obstacles that need to be removed." He touched the ground. The entire laboratory began to shift. Walls rose, floors collapsed, the space became a churning nightmare of reforming matter. Heroes scattered, trying to avoid the lethal restructuring. Eri stood in the center, unmoving, her expression blank. She'd given up, accepted this as her reality. That broke something in Izuku. He repelled himself forward, moving faster than Overhaul could track. His hand touched Eri's shoulder. Gentle, careful, protective. "If you were to travel," he said quietly, "where would you like to go?" She looked up at him with those hollow eyes, and for the first time, something flickered there. Confusion. Hope, maybe. The tiniest spark of possibility. "Anywhere," she whispered. "Anywhere." Overhaul's spike of reformed matter shot toward them. Izuku's paw pad caught it, repelling the attack back. The spike shattered against its creator's own construct. "Get behind me," Izuku told Eri. She moved, her small body trembling. Izuku stood between her and Overhaul, his tall frame a wall of protection. "You dare touch her?" Overhaul's voice rose with fury. "She's mine, my tool, my path to greatness. She's a child, and I'm taking her away from you." The battle that followed was unlike anything Izuku had experienced. Overhaul's quirk allowed him to reshape the entire environment continuously. Walls became spikes, floors became cages, the ceiling descended to crush, but Izuku's repulsion made him untouchable. Every attack was negated, every trap repelled. He advanced methodically, protecting Eri behind him, getting closer to Overhaul with each step. "Impossible," Overhaul breathed. "What kind of quirk?" "Pad cannon." The blast caught Overhaul directly, sending him crashing into his own equipment. But the villain stood immediately, his body reassembling from the damage. Regeneration. Of course, he could disassemble and reassemble himself, healing any injury. This would require different tactics. Izuku touched the ground with both hands. Ursus shock. The massive paw-shaped shockwave erupted, catching Overhaul in its center. The concentrated force was so overwhelming that even molecular-level regeneration couldn't compensate fast enough. Overhaul's body compressed, his bones breaking, his organs rupturing, but still he reformed, slower now in more pain but persistent. "I won't let you take her," Overhaul screamed. "She's the key to everything, to destroying heroes, to restoring order, to making the world pure again." "The world doesn't need to be pure," Izuku said calmly. "It needs to be kind." He advanced again, and Overhaul's desperation increased. The villain began fusing with the laboratory itself, merging his body with the structure, becoming a massive entity of reformed matter, a monster in the truest sense. Other heroes arrived, Sir Night-Eye, several pros, even Kirishima and Tsuyu. They stared at the abomination Overhaul had become. "Everyone back," Izuku ordered. "Protect Eri, I'll handle this." "Midoriya, you can't fight that alone?" Sir Night-Eye protested. "Yes, I can." Because he wasn't just Izuku Midoriya anymore. He was the vessel of One for All, the inheritor of All Might's strength. He was the tyrant who defeated a Nomu designed to kill the symbol of peace. And he would not let this monster touch Eri again. He activated One for All for the first time in combat. Lightning crackled across his body. Green energy coursed through his limbs. The power was overwhelming, nearly uncontrollable, but he forced it to bend to his will. Then he combined it with his quirk. One for All, Pad Cannon. The compressed air blast was apocalyptic. It tore through Overhaul's monstrous form like tissue paper, the sheer force exceeding anything the villain could regenerate from. The laboratory ceiling cracked, the walls shattered, the entire structure groaned under the pressure. Overhaul's scream echoed as his body was forcibly separated from the structure, his human form ejected from the abomination he'd created. He landed broken and defeated, unable to reform, his quirk exhausted. The battle was over. Police and heroes swarmed in, restraining Overhaul, securing the compound. Medical teams arrived to treat injured heroes and examine Eri. Izuku knelt beside the small girl, his paw pad gentle as he checked her for injuries. She flinched at first, expecting pain, but his touch was soft. "It's over," he said quietly. "You're safe now." "Safe?" The word seemed foreign to her. "What's safe?" "It means no one will hurt you anymore. It means you can smile. It means you get to be a child." Her eyes filled with tears, the first emotion she'd shown beyond emptiness. "I don't know how." "Then I'll teach you." Something shifted in that moment. Some connection formed between a 14-year-old hero and a 6-year-old victim. A bond built on shared trauma, mutual understanding of pain, and the desperate need to protect. Izuku looked at this small, broken child and saw himself. Saw the boy who'd lost his mother. Saw the person who'd been forced to grow up too fast, to carry burdens too heavy. And he made a decision. She wouldn't be alone. Not like he had been. He'd protect her. Guide her, give her the childhood that had been stolen, whatever it took. Eri was taken to a secure hospital for treatment. Her injuries were extensive but not life-threatening. The psychological damage, however, was profound. She barely spoke, flinched at sudden movements, and showed signs of severe PTSD. The heroes who'd participated in the raid were debriefed. Izuku received commendations for his performance, though several pro heroes expressed concern about a first-year student facing someone as dangerous as Overhaul. Sir Night-Eye pulled him aside after the official debriefing. "My foresight showed me something during the battle," he said quietly. "A future where you die protecting that girl. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. The timeline is unclear, but the pattern is consistent. Eri becomes important to you, important enough that you'd sacrifice everything for her. That's what heroes do. That's what martyrs do. And martyrs don't get happy endings." Izuku thought about his mother, about All Might's impending retirement, about every hero who'd given everything to protect others. Maybe happy endings are overrated. Maybe the story matters more than how it ends. Sir Night-Eye looked at him with something like pity. "You're 14 years old and you talk like someone ready to die. That's not heroic, Midoriya. That's tragic." Can it be both? The question hung unanswered between them. Over the next week, Izuku visited Eri daily. The hospital had placed her in a secure wing with constant monitoring and psychological counseling, but she remained withdrawn, responding minimally to doctors and therapists. She only showed life when Izuku arrived. "You came back," she said on his third visit, her voice barely a whisper. "Of course. I promised I'd teach you how to be safe." Why? Because someone should have done that for me when I was young and scared. Because you deserve better than what you've experienced. Because I see myself in you. He pulled out a book from his bag. Do you like stories? Eri shook her head. I don't know stories. The admission broke his heart. A 6-year-old who'd never heard stories, never experienced the simple joy of imagination and wonder. Then let's fix that. He began reading to her. Simple tales at first, fairy tales about heroes and dragons, adventures with happy endings. Eri listened with intense focus, her hollow eyes gradually showing hints of curiosity. On his 5th visit, she smiled. Just a tiny upturn of her lips when he did a silly voice for a character, but it was there. Progress. Izuku? She said quietly, the first time she'd used his name. Yes? The story said the princess was saved by a hero. Are you my hero? He looked at this small girl who'd been through hell, who'd been used and abused and broken, and felt something fierce and protective surge through him. If you want me to be. I do. Then I am. That night, lying in his apartment, Izuku made a commitment he knew might destroy him. He would protect Eri, would give her the childhood she deserved, would be the guardian she'd never had, even if it cost him everything. His phone buzzed. A message from Principal Nezu. The authorities have determined that Eri requires a guardian while she recovers. Given your connection with her and her positive response to you, would you be willing to serve as her temporary caretaker? UA will provide support, accommodation, and resources. Izuku's answer was immediate. Yes. 2 weeks later, Eri moved into special accommodation at UA, a small apartment attached to the staff quarters where she'd be safe and monitored while recovering. Izuku was given permission to spend significant time with her, effectively becoming her primary caregiver. His classmates were stunned. You're basically adopting a kid? Bakugo said incredulously. You're 14. She needs someone. I can be that someone. That's insane. Maybe, but it's also right. Uraraka was more supportive. That's really kind, Midoriya, but are you sure you can handle this? Being responsible for another person while still being a student? I'll manage. I have to. Todoroki understood without explanation. You see yourself in her. Yes. Then you'll protect her. No matter what. Yes. The first few weeks were difficult. Eri was terrified of everything. Loud noises, sudden movements, being touched unexpectedly. She had nightmares that left her screaming, memories of Overhaul's experiments that traumatized her waking hours. But Izuku was patient, gentle, consistent. He established routines, morning reading sessions where he'd share stories, afternoon walks around UA safe grounds, evening meals together where he'd teach her about normal things, favorite foods, silly jokes, what it meant to just be a kid. Slowly, gradually, she began to heal. One morning, a month after she'd moved in, Eri asked him a question that changed everything. Izuku, what's a birthday? He looked up from the pancakes he was making. A birthday? It's the day you were born, the day you celebrate being alive. Do I have one? The question was so innocently heartbreaking. Of course she didn't know her own birthday. Overhaul had probably never told her. I'm sure you do. We'll find out when it is. He contacted the authorities, requested Eri's birth records. The answer came back 2 days later. Her birthday was December 21st. 6 months away. December 21st, he told her. You'll turn 7. 7 is good? 7 is very good, and we'll celebrate, with cake and presents and everything birthdays should have. Her eyes widened with wonder. Really? Really? From that moment, Eri began looking forward to her birthday with almost painful anticipation. She'd ask about it constantly, what cake would taste like, what presents were, if she could have friends at her party. Izuku answered every question with patience and love, and he began to understand what it meant to have something worth living for, beyond duty. Worth fighting for beyond obligation, worth dying for if necessary. Because Eri wasn't just a victim he'd rescued. She was becoming his purpose, his reason to be more than the tyrant, his chance to give someone else the love and protection he'd lost when his mother died. She was, in every way that mattered, his daughter. Time passed. Summer turned to fall. Eri continued healing, her personality emerging from beneath the trauma. She was curious, gentle, remarkably resilient. She loved stories and sweets and the way Izuku's paw pads felt soft against her hands. She started smiling more, laughing occasionally, showing signs of the child she should have been all along. UA students adopted her as their unofficial mascot. Uraraka taught her how to make her zero-gravity quirk create floating tea parties. Ida gave her lectures about proper running form that she found hilarious. Even Bakugo grudgingly showed her how to make small, safe explosions with supervised materials. But Izuku remained her center. Her protector, her hero. "Tell me about your mother," she asked one evening while they read together. Izuku paused. He rarely spoke about his mother to anyone. The grief was still too raw, even after 3 years. But Eri deserved honesty. "She was kind, the kindest person I've ever known. She taught me that being strong meant being gentle, that having power meant protecting others, that the best heroes were the ones who cared. Like you. I try to be like her, but I'm not as good." "You're better." The simple declaration, spoken with such conviction, nearly broke him. "Why do you think that?" "Because you chose to save me. You didn't have to. I was just a tool to overhaul, just a thing, but you saw me as a person, as someone worth protecting. You are worth protecting. You're worth everything." She hugged him then, a rare gesture she was still learning to accept, and Izuku held her gently, his paw pads soft against her small back. "This," he thought, "this is what my mother died for. Not for me to become the strongest hero, but for me to protect children like this, to give them the love and safety they deserve. This is what being a hero means." October arrived with cooling temperatures and the gradual approach of Eri's birthday. She talked about it constantly, her excitement almost painful to witness. She'd never had a birthday before, never experienced the simple joy of being celebrated just for existing. Izuku began planning. He wanted it to be perfect, a day she'd remember forever as the moment her life truly began. But other events were unfolding beyond his awareness. Dark currents moving beneath society's surface, threats gathering that would test everything he'd learned about sacrifice and protection. The League of Villains had been quiet since the USJ attack. Too quiet. Intelligence suggested they were planning something significant, recruiting members, building toward a major assault. And then Sir Night-Eye's foresight showed him something that made his blood run cold. He called Izuku to a private meeting. "My quirk has shown me a future," Sir Night-Eye said without preamble. "Multiple timelines converging on a single event, a villain attack of unprecedented scale, targeting UA specifically, dozens dead, the school destroyed, Japan's hero society shaken to its core. When? December 21st. Eri's birthday." Izuku felt something cold settle in his chest. Of course it would be her birthday. Of course, the day she was supposed to finally be happy would be the day everything fell apart. What kind of attack? The League of Villains has created something. A weapon, or possibly a villain with a catastrophic quirk. My foresight couldn't see clearly. Whatever it is, disrupts prediction abilities, but the pattern is consistent across all timelines. UA is attacked. Hundreds are in danger, and someone makes a sacrifice to stop it. Who? Sir Night-Eye met his eyes. "In every timeline, I can see clearly enough to identify individuals. It's you. You make a sacrifice that saves everyone. But Midoriya, this isn't like the USJ. This isn't you fighting a powerful enemy and winning. This is you giving up something fundamental, something irreversible. What do I give up? I can't see clearly. But the futures that branch from that moment show you. Different. Changed. No longer yourself in some fundamental way. It's like you cease to exist as an individual and become something else." Izuku thought about Kuma's ultimate fate in the story his mother had told him, the pirate who'd given up everything, his memories, his personality, his very self, to become a mindless weapon protecting what he loved, a fate worse than death. "And if I don't make this sacrifice, everyone at UA dies. Eri dies. Your classmates, your teachers, everyone. The villain attack succeeds and hero society collapses." The choice wasn't really a choice at all. I understand. Midoriya, you're 14 years old. I'm telling you that in 2 months, you'll have to make a decision that will erase everything you are. Your future, your dreams, your very self, and you're just accepting it? Do I have another option? We could try to prevent the attack. Increase security, prepare defenses. And if that's not enough, if the attack happens anyway and I'm not ready to do what's necessary, how many people die because I hesitated? Sir Night-Eye had no answer. Izuku left the meeting with 2 months to prepare. 2 months to ensure that if he had to sacrifice himself, it would count. That Eri would survive. That everyone he cared about would be protected. 2 months to say goodbye without anyone knowing he was saying goodbye. He didn't tell anyone about Tsurunaya's vision, didn't want to burden others with the knowledge of his impending fate. Instead, he threw himself into spending time with the people who mattered. He trained harder with Bakugo, pushing them both to new limits. Sat with Todoroki discussing philosophy and the burden of power. Helped Uraraka practice her quirk applications. Attended Ida's study sessions even though he didn't need them. He visited his mother's grave every week, talking to her about Eri, about his classmates, about the life he'd built. And most importantly, he spent every possible moment with Eri. They established rituals. Morning reading sessions where he'd share stories of heroes and adventure. Afternoon cooking lessons where she'd help make simple meals. Evening stargazing from Yue's roof where he'd point out constellations and tell her their stories. "Izuku?" she asked one night while they watched the stars. "Will you always be here?" The question pierced him because he knew the answer. Knew that in 2 months he'd have to leave her in the worst possible way. But he couldn't tell her that. Couldn't steal her happiness with the knowledge of his impending sacrifice. "I'll always be with you," he said carefully. "Even if I'm not physically here, I'll always be watching over you." That's what people say when someone dies. Her perception was devastating. Sometimes people have to go away, but that doesn't mean they stop loving you. It doesn't mean you weren't important to them. It just means their job took them somewhere else. "Are you going somewhere?" "Someday, maybe, but not today. Today I'm right here with you." She snuggled closer, her small body warm against his side. "Good, because I don't want you to go. You're my hero, my family, my dad." The last word was tentative, questioning, asking permission. Izuku felt his throat tighten. "If you want me to be, I do. Then I am." He held her gently, watching the stars, memorizing this moment, because soon, moments like this would be all he had left to give her. The next 2 months passed too quickly. Izuku documented everything he could think of that Eri might need. He wrote guides for cooking her favorite foods, created video messages explaining life lessons she'd need, compiled lists of people she could trust, resources she could use, support systems she could rely on. He was preparing for his own absence. All Might noticed. "Young Midoriya, you're acting like someone preparing to die." "Maybe I am." "Don't joke about that." "I'm not joking." He told All Might about Sir Night Eye's vision, about the impending attack, about the sacrifice he'd have to make. The symbol of peace's reaction was immediate. "No, absolutely not. We'll find another way. We'll prevent the attack, evacuate the school, something. And if that's not enough, if the attack happens and I haven't prepared, how many people die? That's not your responsibility alone, isn't it? I have the power to save everyone. How can I not use it? Because you're a child, because you deserve a future, because sacrificing yourself isn't heroic, it's tragic. Can it be both?" All Might looked at him with profound sadness. "You're so much like me, and I hate it, because I know exactly how this story ends. The hero gives everything, saves everyone, and dies alone having never truly lived. You lived, you became the symbol of peace. You made the world better. And I'm dying at 45 alone with nothing to show for it but scars and regrets. Is that what you want? To save the world and lose yourself in the process?" Izuku thought about Eri, about her smile, about the future she'd have because of his sacrifice. If it means she gets to live, if it means everyone I care about survives, then yes, that's exactly what I want. All Might had no response. They both knew Izuku had already made his choice. December arrived with cold winds and gray skies. Eri's birthday approached with mathematical inevitability. She talked about it constantly, her excitement building to almost painful levels. Izuku prepared her party with meticulous care. He ordered a cake decorated with her favorite characters from the stories they'd read. Bought presents he knew would make her smile. Books, toys, a scarf in her favorite color. Invited her closest friends among the UA students. He wanted her birthday to be perfect, because it would be the last time he'd see her happy. Sir Night Eye's predictions grew more specific as the date approached. The attack would come in the afternoon, during Eri's party. The villains had somehow learned about her importance to UA, about her connection to Izuku. They were targeting her specifically. Izuku met with Nezu and the hero faculty 3 days before the birthday. "We're evacuating everyone who isn't essential," Nezu said. Most students will be sent home for an extended break. Only staff and select students remain to defend the school. Eri stays with me. That might not be safe. Eri stays with me. She's the target. Sending her away just puts other people in danger. Here, I can protect her. Midoriya, Sir Night Eye's vision suggests you'll have to use your pain extraction technique on a massive scale, taking injuries from potentially hundreds of people, absorbing all that damage into yourself. That could kill you. Or it could save everyone. I'll take that trade. Aizawa spoke up. You're 14 years old. We can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. I have the power to protect people. This is what that power is for. The meeting ended with reluctant acceptance. Izuku would be on the defensive team. If the attack came as predicted, he'd do whatever was necessary to protect everyone, including sacrificing himself. He spent the next 2 days with Eri, making memories. They baked cookies together, read her favorite stories multiple times, watched silly movies that made her laugh. On the evening of December 20th, the day before her birthday, Eri asked him the question he'd been dreading. Izuku, tomorrow's my birthday. It is. Will you be there? For the whole party? He thought about Sir Night Eye's vision, about the attack that would come during her celebration, about the sacrifice he'd have to make. I'll be there for as long as I can, and even if I have to leave, I'll make sure you're safe. I promise. You always keep your promises. I try. She hugged him tightly. This is the best birthday already, because you're here. Izuku held her, memorizing how she felt, how she smelled like the strawberry shampoo she loved, how her small heart beat against his chest. I love you, he said quietly, the first time he'd said those words since his mother died. I love you too, Dad. That night, after Eri fell asleep, Izuku recorded his message, the one she'd receive when he made his sacrifice. He set up his phone's camera, positioned himself in good lighting, and took a deep breath. Then he began to speak. Hi, Eri. If you're watching this, it means I had to go away. I'm sorry. I know I promised to always be there, and I hate breaking that promise. But sometimes heroes have to make hard choices. Sometimes we have to leave the people we love to protect them. I want you to know that everything I did for you. You're the most important person in my world. You gave me a reason to be more than just strong. You taught me what it means to love someone unconditionally. You made me a better hero and a better person. I know you're probably sad right now, maybe angry, maybe confused about why I had to leave, and I wish I could explain it in a way that would make sense. But the truth is, some things can't be explained. Sometimes we just have to accept that the people we love did what they thought was right, even if it hurts. Your birthday is supposed to be happy. I wanted today to be perfect for you, and I'm sorry if my leaving ruined it. But I need you to understand something important. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Saving you, protecting you, being your dad, those were the greatest honors of my life, worth any sacrifice, worth everything. I want you to live, Eri, really live. Not just survive like you did with Overhaul, not just exist, but live. Smile every day, make friends, try new things, be brave, be kind, be everything you're capable of being. Don't cry for me. Or if you do cry, don't cry for long. I don't want you to be sad. I want you to be happy. I want you to remember the good times we had. The stories, the cookies, the stargazing. I want you to remember that you were loved, that you mattered, that you were someone's whole world. The other students will take care of you. Uraraka, Ida, even Bakugo in his own grumpy way. All Might will watch over you. You won't be alone. You have a family here at UA, people who love you and want you to succeed. I left you some things. Notebooks with all my favorite recipes so you can make the foods we enjoyed together, books we never got to read, letters for different occasions, your next birthday, your first day of school when you're sad and need encouragement. I thought of everything I could to help you keep going without me. But the most important thing I want to leave you is this. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of happiness. You are worthy of a future. Overhaul tried to take that from you, tried to make you think you were just a tool, but you're not. You're a person, a wonderful, kind, brave person who deserves every good thing this world has to offer. So live, Eri. Live the life I can't. Be happy. Find joy. Make the world better just by existing in it. And when you think about me, don't be sad. Remember that I made this choice willingly. That protecting you was the most heroic thing I ever did. That I died, or whatever happened to me, knowing I'd saved the person who mattered most. One last thing. You asked me once where I'd like to travel if I could go anywhere. I told you I'd want to go wherever you were. Because home isn't a place, Eri. Home is the people we love. And you'll always be my home, no matter where I am. So if someone asks you, if you were to travel, where would you like to go? I want you to say, anywhere I want, because you're free now. Free to choose. Free to live. Free to be yourself without fear. That's my gift to you. Freedom, safety, a future. Happy birthday, Eri. I love you, always and forever. Your dad, Izuku. He stopped recording, tears streaming down his face. The message was complete, his final words to the person who'd given his life meaning. He set the video to automatically send to her account on her 8th birthday, 1 year from now. When she'd be older, more stable, better able to process what he'd done and why. Then he prepared himself for what was coming. December 21st arrived with bitter cold and pale sunlight. Eri woke early, her excitement palpable. She bounced into Izuku's room where he'd spent the night on a cot to be close if she needed him. It's my birthday. I'm 7. He smiled, pushing aside the knowledge of what this day would bring. You are. Happy birthday, Eri. She hugged him fiercely. This is the best day ever. It will be. Come on, let's make breakfast. Birthday pancakes. They cooked together, Eri chattering about everything she wanted to do, everyone she wanted to see. The normalcy was precious and painful. The party was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. Sir Night-Eye's vision placed the attack at approximately 2:30, 30 minutes of happiness before everything fell apart. Izuku made sure those 30 minutes were perfect. The party room was decorated with streamers and balloons. The cake was beautiful, covered in frosting and candles. Presents were stacked in a corner. The few students who'd remained at UA, Uraraka, Ida, Kirishima, even Bakugo, arrived with gifts and smiles. Eri was radiant with joy. She'd never experienced anything like this. The attention, the celebration, the love. This is for me, she kept asking. All of this? All of it, Izuku confirmed. Because you deserve it. They sang happy birthday. She blew out her candles, making a wish she wouldn't share. They cut the cake and she took her first bite of the sweet frosting. It's delicious, she exclaimed. Everyone laughed. Eri opened presents, books from Uraraka, a toy hero set from Ida, explosion-safe science kit from Bakugo that made Izuku raise an eyebrow. She was so happy, so perfectly, wonderfully happy. And then at 2:27 p.m. the alarm sounded. Villain attack. Multiple signatures approaching from the east. Everyone froze. The students looked at each other, then at Izuku. He met their gazes, saw the question there. This was it, the moment Sir Night-Eye had predicted. Eri, he said calmly, I need you to go with Uraraka. She'll take you somewhere safe. But the party... We'll finish it later. Right now, I need to make sure everyone stays safe. Can you be brave for me? She nodded, trusting him completely. Uraraka took her hand, leading her toward the secure bunker beneath the building. Izuku turned to the others. Evacuate all non-combatants. Get to the shelters. The pro-heroes will handle the main assault. What about you? Kirishima asked. I'll do what I do best, protect people. They scattered. Izuku walked toward the approaching threat, his mind calm. This was what he'd been preparing for. What he'd known was coming. Time to pay the price. The villains emerged from a massive portal, dozens of them, led by Tamura Shigaraki and a figure Izuku had never seen before. A man whose body seemed to be made of pure destructive energy, crackling with power that felt wrong on a fundamental level. There he is. Shigaraki's raspy voice carried across the battlefield. The Tyrant, the one who ruined our plans at USJ. This is personal now. The energy villain spoke in a voice like thunder. I am Tribulation. My quirk allows me to absorb and amplify all damage dealt to me, then release it in a catastrophic explosion. The heroes can't touch me. Every attack makes me stronger. And when I detonate, this entire school, everyone in it will be atomized. A suicide bomber with an absorption quirk. The perfect counter to conventional hero tactics. Attack him and make him stronger. Don't attack him and let him detonate anyway. Impossible to stop through normal means. But Izuku had never been normal. Pro-heroes arrived, Aizawa, Present Meek, even All Might in his skeletal form pushed to his limit. They assessed the situation, saw the impossibility of it. Everyone back! All Might shouted. We need to evacuate. If that thing detonates, There's no time, Izuku said calmly. His energy is building. He'll explode before we can evacuate everyone. Then what do we do? Izuku looked at the gathered heroes, at his friends, at the school where Eri was hiding, terrified but safe. He thought about Sir Night-Eye's vision, about the sacrifice required, about becoming something other than himself to save everyone, and he accepted it. I need everyone to fall back, get to minimum safe distance. I'll handle this. Midoriya, you can't. Yes, I can. Trust me. He walked toward Tribulation alone, his tall frame casting long shadows. The villain laughed. You think you can stop me? I've absorbed dozens of attacks already. My power is overwhelming. Nothing can... If you were to travel, Izuku said quietly, where would you like to go? His paw pads touched Tribulation's chest. The pain extraction technique activated on a scale he'd never attempted before. Not just removing someone's injuries, removing the fundamental energy that made Tribulation dangerous. Absorbing it directly into himself, the villain screamed as his power was forcibly extracted, pulled into Izuku's body through the paw pads. Energy crackled, reality warped, the very air burned with transferred destruction, and Izuku took it all. Every ounce of accumulated damage, every bit of catastrophic energy, everything that would have destroyed UA and everyone in it, into himself. The pain was indescribable, like being unmade at the molecular level. Like every cell in his body was simultaneously exploding and compressing, like dying slowly from the inside out. But he held on, compressed the energy within his body using his quirk's repulsion, containing it, preventing it from escaping. Tribulation collapsed, powerless. The other villains stared in shock. Shigaraki backed away, understanding dawning. "What are you doing?" he whispered. Izuku stood in the center of a crater his power had created, his body glowing with barely contained energy. Cracks of light showed through his skin where the absorbed damage was breaking him apart from within. He was dying. No, worse, he was being erased. The energy was too much for any human body to contain. Even his quirk couldn't repel it completely because it was already inside him. He had minutes, maybe less. All Might rushed forward. Midoriya, release it, expel the energy. Can't. If I release it, everyone dies. The explosion would be even worse than Tribulation's detonation. Then what? All Might's voice broke. No, there has to be another way. There isn't. Izuku looked at his mentor, saw the tears forming. It's okay. This is what heroes do. We sacrifice ourselves so others can live. You're 14 years old. I know, but I have the power to save everyone. How can I not use it? The energy surged, becoming harder to contain. Izuku's body was breaking down, his consciousness fragmenting. He could feel himself dissolving, becoming something other than human. Get Eri, he said urgently. I need to see her one more time. Uraraka brought her, the small girl crying, not understanding what was happening, but knowing it was bad. Izuku? Her voice was small, terrified. He knelt down, his body barely holding together, light bleeding through cracks in his skin. His smile was gentle despite the agony. Remember what I told you? About how sometimes heroes have to go away? No, you said you'd stay. You promised. I know, and I'm sorry. But Eri, I need you to listen very carefully. He touched her face with his paw pad, gentle despite the power coursing through him. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You gave my life meaning. You made me more than just strong. You made me human again. Don't go. Please don't go. I have to, but I'll always be with you, always watching over you. Even if you can't see me, I'll be there. The energy was overwhelming now. His consciousness was fading, his sense of self dissolving. He had seconds. If you were to travel, where would you like to go? Through her tears, Eri whispered, anywhere with you. Then go everywhere, see the world, live the life I can't, be happy for both of us. He stood, his body almost translucent with contained energy. I love you, Eri. Happy birthday. Then he used every ounce of willpower remaining to activate his quirk one final time. Not to repel the energy outward, that would kill everyone. Not to contain it, his body was failing, unable to hold it any longer, but to compress it into himself, to fold the destructive power inward, using his own body and consciousness as a permanent prison for the catastrophic energy. He repelled his own consciousness away from the center of his being, pushing his sense of self outward while drawing the energy inward. Becoming a living container, a vessel with no pilot, a body without a soul, the technique was absolute, irreversible. His last thought before his consciousness scattered was of Eri's smile. Then Izuku Midoriya ceased to exist. What remained was something else. A body that breathed but didn't live. Eyes that saw but didn't comprehend. A powerful quirk with no mind to guide it. The heroes stared in horror as Izuku's body stood empty, the catastrophic energy safely contained within an unthinking shell. He'd saved everyone by becoming a prison for destruction, sacrificing not just his life, but his very self. Eri screamed his name, trying to run to him, but Uraraka held her back. Because the thing that looked like Izuku wasn't him anymore. It was just an empty vessel, maintaining the seal through unconscious quirk activation. All Might fell to his knees, weeping. What have we done? What have we asked of him? Aizawa's face was grim. He didn't ask permission, he just did what he thought was right. At what cost? All Might whispered. His entire existence? His future? Everything he could have been? Eri was sobbing. Bring him back, please bring him back. But no one could. What Izuku had done was permanent. He'd scattered his own consciousness to save everyone else, and there was no way to reverse it. The body that had been Izuku Midoriya stood motionless, a statue of sacrifice, forever containing the energy that would have destroyed everything he loved. The League of Villains retreated, shocked by what they'd witnessed. Shigaraki looked back once, his expression unreadable behind his hand mask. He chose this, he said to Kurogiri, chose to become nothing to save everyone. What kind of hero does that? The truest kind, Kurogiri replied, and the most tragic. The aftermath was devastating. UA tried to find a way to restore Izuku's consciousness, but the best medical experts and quirk specialists confirmed what everyone feared. He was gone. His body persisted, maintained by his quirk's automatic functions. But Izuku himself no longer existed in any meaningful sense. They placed his body in a special containment facility where it stood motionless, forever holding the energy that would have killed hundreds. A living monument to sacrifice. Eri visited every day, sitting beside the empty shell that looked like her father, talking to him even though he couldn't respond. I miss you, she'd say. Everyone misses you. Uraraka cries sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking. Bakugo gets angry and punches things. All Might looks so sad. She'd hold the hand that couldn't hold her back. I'm trying to be brave, like you wanted. Trying to live and be happy. But it's hard without you. The months passed. Eri grew older, stronger, more confident. She trained her quirk, learning to control it, discovering she could heal people with her rewind ability when used carefully. She became what Izuku had hoped, a hero in her own right. Her 8th birthday approached. She'd planned a small celebration with her friends, trying to honor the tradition Izuku had started. The morning of December 21st, she woke to find a notification on her tablet. A video message, scheduled to arrive exactly 1 year after her 7th birthday. Her hands shook as she pressed play. Izuku's face appeared on screen, young and alive and smiling. The recording from the night before he'd sacrificed himself. Hi, Eri. If you're watching this, it means I had to go away. She watched the iron message, tears streaming down her face, listened to his words of love and encouragement, heard him say he loved her, understood, finally, that he'd known what was coming and had chosen it anyway. When he said, "Happy birthday, Eri," at the end, she sobbed. But beneath the grief was something else. Understanding. Acceptance. The knowledge that his sacrifice had given her a life worth living. She was alive because of him, free because of him, able to pursue her dreams because he'd given up everything. The message ended, but she played it again and again, memorizing his voice, his expressions, the love in his eyes when he talked about her. That afternoon, she visited his body in the containment facility, the empty shell that had once been her father. I got your message, she said quietly. Thank you for everything, for saving me, for loving me, for giving me a future. She touched the glass that separated them. You asked me where I'd like to travel. I think I know now. I want to go everywhere you can't. I want to see everything, do everything, live everything, for both of us. The body didn't respond. It never would. I love you, Dad. Happy birthday to me. And thank you for the best gift anyone could give. Thank you for letting me live. She left the facility and returned to UA where her friends waited. They celebrated her birthday, cake and presents and laughter. It hurt, knowing Izuku wasn't there, knowing he never would be. But she smiled, because that's what he'd wanted. For her to be happy, to live fully, to make his sacrifice mean something. Years passed. Eri grew into a remarkable young hero, her rewind quirk saving countless lives. She carried Izuku's notebooks with her, studied his techniques, honored his memory by protecting others. She visited his body every year on her birthday, talking to the empty shell, sharing her accomplishments. I graduated at the top of my class, she told him on her 18th birthday. You'd be proud. I'm working with Recovery Girl now, using my quirk to heal people just like you did. The body stood silent, forever containing the energy that would have destroyed everything. I met someone. They're kind and strong, and they remind me of you. Not the power part, the gentle part. The part that chose to protect people even when it cost everything. She touched the glass. I'm happy, Dad. Really happy. Just like you wanted. And I know you can't hear me, but I think maybe some part of you knows. Somewhere, somehow you know that your sacrifice worked, that I lived, that I'm okay. On her 21st birthday, Eri stood before a crowd of graduating hero students delivering a speech about sacrifice and legacy. I knew a hero once, she said. He saved my life when I was 6 years old, took me in, protected me, gave me the childhood I'd been denied. On my 7th birthday, he sacrificed himself to save everyone at UA, not just his life, his entire existence. He made himself a prison for catastrophic energy, gave up his consciousness, his future, his very self. The crowd listened in reverent silence. His name was Izuku Midoriya. He was 14 years old. He was called the Tyrant because of his overwhelming power, but he was the gentlest person I've ever known. He taught me that true strength isn't about destroying enemies. It's about protecting what you love, no matter the cost. She held up a photograph, her and Izuku, taken the day before her 7th birthday, both smiling, both happy, not knowing what was coming, but sharing a moment of pure joy. He left me a message, told me to live, to be happy, to go everywhere and do everything, to remember that I was loved, that I mattered, that I was his whole world. Tears fell, but her voice remained steady. So that's what I've done. I've lived, I've been happy, I've seen the world and helped people and honored his memory by becoming the hero he believed I could be. She looked directly at the camera, knowing this speech would be broadcast. If you were to travel, where would you like to go? That's what he always asked people. It was his way of offering freedom, possibility, hope. My answer is, everywhere he can't. I travel for both of us. I live for both of us. I smile for both of us. Because that's what his sacrifice earned. Not just my survival, but my joy, my future, my chance to make the world better. Happy birthday to me, and thank you, Dad, for everything, forever. The speech ended to thunderous applause. Eri accepted her hero license, graduated with highest honors, and began her career protecting others, just like Izuku had. Decades later, Eri stood before Izuku's body one final time. She was old now, her white hair truly white with age rather than trauma. She lived a full life, saved thousands, taught hundreds, loved deeply, and been loved in return. I'm retiring today, she told the motionless shell, passing my agency to my successor. I've had a good run, 60 years of hero work. Not bad for the kid who started as a villain's experiment. She touched the glass with aged fingers. You'd be proud. I know you would. I used your techniques, followed your example, tried to be the hero you believed I could be. Her voice softened. I miss you. Even after all these years, I miss you. You were only in my life for a few months, but you shaped everything that came after. You made me who I am. She pulled out the old tablet, now ancient technology, and played the message one more time. Izuku's young face appeared, speaking words she'd memorized decades ago. Happy birthday, Eri. She smiled through tears. Happy birthday to me, Dad, and thank you for the life you gave me, for the love you showed me, for the sacrifice that made everything possible. I'll see you again someday, when my journey's done, and I'll tell you everything. All the places I went, all the people I saved, all the joy I experienced. Because of you. All of it, because of you. The body stood silent. It always had. It always would. But somehow, Eri felt like he heard her anyway. In the end, Izuku Midoriya saved everyone. Not through overwhelming power or tactical brilliance, but through willing sacrifice. He gave up everything, his future, his dreams, his very self, to protect the people he loved. He became a prison for destruction, a monument to sacrifice, a reminder of what true heroism costs. And in doing so, he gave one small girl the chance to live, to thrive, to become extraordinary. Eri's life was his legacy. Her joy was his victory. Her future was what he died for. The tyrant with the gentle heart had made his final choice, and in the arithmetic of sacrifice, it balanced. One life given for thousands saved, one existence erased for one precious girl to smile. Worth it. Always worth it. Happy birthday, Eri. In a world of heroes and villains, of power and sacrifice, Izuku Midoriya made the ultimate choice. He gave not just his life, but his very consciousness to save those he loved. His body remains, forever containing catastrophic energy, a silent guardian standing watch over the school he died protecting. Eri lived. She thrived. She became the hero he believed she could be. And every year on her birthday, she remembered the boy who became her father for a few precious months, who taught her that love meant sacrifice, that protection meant giving everything, that some heroes don't get happy endings, they just get the satisfaction of knowing their sacrifice mattered. Izuku Midoriya, the tyrant, the boy with paw pads and infinite power, ceased to exist at 14 years old, but his legacy lived forever in the girl he saved. In the end, that was all that mattered. The tyrant's farewell was not a grand speech or dramatic final battle. It was simply, "Happy birthday, Eri, I love you." And in those words, he gave her everything. The end.
And now, it's time for our Patreon shout-out. For our pro-hero tier, the rising stars lighting the path of justice, Ancient Chant, and Javon McQuire. For our symbol of peace tier, huge shout-out to Elijah Saunders, Ab, Peter Hamilton, Freddie Rose, Omega, Toxic Rune, Akuma no Akami, Chris Talley, F the Voice, Alexander Thompson, Remorsefuls, Black Vein, Justin Pontanal, Nicholas Barnes, Joshua Hedrington, Aaron Abercrombie, Drift SK Ader, Akeno Himijima, Corey Tokars, Yarn, Zero Hope 3656, Devin Black, Rowdy Rich, King of the Pirates, Crow, Uzbred, Roberto Ramos D. Cristina, Dasher Dames, Joe Bros, Aiden Schmidt, Rayvon Crimson River, Dante Alaster, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, Omar Kuzin, Donna Cafe, Zeph, Assassin 24, Howie 60, Ignacio, Albert, Carlos Terry, Rafael Turan, KC. And finally, our Hope of the Universe tier, Marl, Spintown, Jaden Garrett, Greg Green, James, Quanyan Thompson, Big Fro Pro, Juan, I'm Calver, Colsey. You're the legends who stand above all, the shining hope that guides every hero onward. And there you have it, the Tyrant's Tale. A hero forged in tragedy and sacrifice. If this story moved you, if Izuku's journey made your heart ache, then smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss another epic What If story. Drop a comment telling me what broke your heart most, and share this with someone who loves emotional, powerful narratives. More legendary stories are coming. Until next time, stay heroic.